challenged me, that I had to take responsibility of my own actions. I had to take accountability, and I also had to grow up a lot because when I went in, I was a young man. I was 17, and then when I got out the first time, I was 21. But I was still had the mind frame and the understanding of a 17. So I had to quickly learn that my decisions don't just affect me; they affect my family and my community and the people that are around me. And once I got a grip of that, understanding of that, I was able to, um, you know, really look at myself and really a lot of self-development took place. That's what I can say.
Did your families feel shame about what you have done? I mean, yeah. Yes and no. I think people definitely deal with things differently, and I think there are stages of what we have gone through. There are stages for the people around you that they have to go through as well. Yeah. And I think, shame, everybody wants any of their loved ones like to do. It doesn't sound very, but it's not good. It's not a good place to be. So I think maybe naturally that will come, but I think, support and love from families.
Yeah, we spoke about this on the podcast, on the Life After podcast. We spoke about this where I had my mum come on the podcast.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I remember a time when she told people that I was toxic or started to grow because of the shame. But now she's found what it really was. Yeah, we go inside, but now we're really making things to get away. And we're focused on the research and content for
and because the podcast is like we can imagine, can't we, what navigating the stigma and the everyday newness of life after incarceration must be like. But what was it that made you realise that you could serve a purpose by talking and helping others? What are some of the things that you realised were struggles?
So when you're doing a long stint, you see a lot of people come in and out, and it's asking them the questions of why does this happen? What's the reoccurring theme? A lot of them, a lot of them were, not having somewhere to live, finding jobs, being around the same circle of friends, going back to the same area sometimes. Sometimes they were battling things like addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, and these underlying issues weren't being addressed. It's very difficult navigating freedom when you don't have that stability. And so all these challenges plus there's social stigma, not feeling like yourself.
I don't think either of us have had or understood that when you get out and face these challenges. So we kind of, everybody that was interviewed and, us talking about it, we just understood that it's not different for everybody. And if we can find solutions for the way we've been feeling, then, we want to give back and help these people too. Identity exploration. If we understand that a disabled person impacted by inequality and marginalisation, and his work has the ability to make able people identify and relate to a wider spectrum of human experience, I really felt your work, and we'll come on to some of the pieces that touched me. So Christopher, you were diagnosed with muscular dystrophy, Charcot-Marie Tooth disease.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So muscular dystrophy affects muscles,
Yes.
like the shedding affected by nerves, which send the message to the muscle. So it's a neuropathy.
Yes.
Basically.
So how long have you got the diagnosis?
7 months. My mom did something was wrong. So, and she was constantly going to doctors to say there's something wrong with her mind.
She wasn't listening.
No, she wasn't. They said she was an overzealous. That's what the manipulation. That was just it.
So was that young boy, I'm told you, was art part of your life? No? What did you like doing? What did you dream of doing?
Why?
It's my life.
我看看，
I like
我觉得到底还有什么？
Probably
哦，他其实我看看。 你用幾多嘅？我應該5隻。
One, the that is one Africa. She's four.
Okay.
I was forced to a special school.
Okay.
The park I was at. My mom
Okay.
to take me out of school. My mainstream school. And that was so coincidence. Taken out special school when I was 10, 11. Didn't get back into mainstream school till I was 14. It's sort of a big
Knowledge the most.
I'll be going.
They have
I'll
another
be
son.
I will be heading home.
His name is
Because you pick this up
Mhm.
Ramsey's also
Yeah.
attached. Got an adorable
At
boy
the-
following around the palace.
then I'll go to school at 6.
Yeah.
And you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait to pick me up.
You were right, your first thing was a cat.
And
A
then,
lion.
even if there's winter,
Yeah.
it'll probably already be 9 o'clock. No, I mean like 7
There's some other sacred stuff we should talk about actually in terms of Ramsey.
Yeah.
There's a very famous feast
Oh yeah.
or jubilee.
You start at
called
5:15 is it?
SPT,
Oh.
and this was held for a king after
Okay.
the rule for 30
So no,
years.
it's
It's
a no.
quite a rare festival in this thing. How many do you
有冇同其他人講嗰個？
I forget about another thing when we have like
really good guess? Went for 40. Do you want to guess what the festival involves? Wrestling? Sure. All we know is it's a certain amount of influence, right? Because
有冇帶齊嘢㗎？有冇着褸㗎你？個 coat jacket 有帶嚇？有冇帶啊？嚇？你係咪冇帶啊？11度。啲相，你係咪真係冇帶啊？啲上次病嘅，你記唔記得啊？
That was in the winter.
而家咪 winter。
This is the warm winter. 10 degrees.
你乜都唔記得嘅，點解可以？
it's destroyed the full mentality of these, or being gathered as Ramesses was into Copenhagen as the end of the movement of the Nazis. There were economic problems, there was a spate to problems. So the authorities in Athens, a couple of hundred years after Ramesses had died, thought they had to gather up all the kings together and bury them in one safe place. And you want to down!
Well, that brings us on to the floor. So, Wade and our experts on planning structure. Here, and we were talking about Ramesses. It's pretty short propaganda. 3, 2, 1.
I think we know one thing we know so much about someone called human. We tend to make all assumptions. Famous for being bombastic, particularly in the case of Bangladesh. But we tend to, when we're describing that, talk about bombs and use that term modern. What you have to understand with Ramesses is he's living in the 1200s BCE when there isn't an alternative to autocratic monarchy. It's not like there are political parties, he's not appealing to the general public, he's king. So when he's building false statues out in wonder, it's not that they're propaganda, because the general mass of the he is more likely to be advertising to gods because he sees gods as his heroes. And so he sees himself in that society. So when we see a false statue, we think autocratic, oriented Scotland, that's what they're like. And have these together. And it's fundamentally just prejudiced, racist attitude, which we reject. But I think Ramesses is as much advertising to the gods, but he's also advertising to himself. He's going into temples and seeing these huge colossal statues of himself. So what do you mean I am? I am God and I can do this too. So it's kind of positive self-affirmation of difference. And I think we misunderstand Ramesses as modern terminology for propaganda.
So much. So, any thoughts on that?
I also did think when you like accuse all these statues of not stopping statues, I was thinking if like someone went to get like candle making sets and then they just constantly doing it, but it is just a form of self-care. Like putting yourself on stuff and being like, yeah, I
But that's basically it for our show. Massive colossus thank you to us one of the guests. Support and one of Dr. Campbell Price. Thank you, Campbell.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much.
And in Comedy Corner, returning hero that this being sensational Sophie Cooper. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you, Campbell. As you said, words of Mariah Carey, they provide a song for soundtrack to Prince Regent. There can be miracles when you believe.
And so you love this, and join me next time for some historical hijinks. And now, I'm off to go and carve a Steve Lightwood statue of myself. Bye. You're Dead to Me was presented by Greg Jenner. The producers were Emmy Edwards and Emmy Rose Price Goodfellow. The sound editor was Steve Lightwood. This episode's a programme of BBC Sounds. And speaking of history, Vinegar has an interesting story as we look at the Cheap Cabinet. A story that I've never heard before. Real people
Ủa mấy á, vô tìm ấy. Producer. No. Bring everything together.
They all believed Dad was responsible for taking out a Nazi fugitive in Australia. It's been quite a few days in politics, then George Parker of the Financial Times will be attempting to make sense of it all in the week of Westminster. And that's 11 o'clock here on BBC Radio 4, where now we join Jay Rayner and his team of Conduit Intimates.
Hello and welcome to the Cabinet. This is a very significant story of people town suffered probably best known food person for brewing sugar products. But there's a very great broadcaster, John Peel, also lived not far from here, and indeed his funeral was in Bury St Edmunds. As legend has it, the singer-songwriter Billy Graham believed Billy Graham, like you could see John Peel, played his first episode of radio in escape from the Indian Army. Peel was clearly joining me to explore the towns of the bonding country offerings are writers and chefs Tim Hayward, Easter Belfridge and Andy Oliver, and with them a food historian who loves a brew, is as sweet as sugar, and is always open to a food ride. It's Dr. Annie Gray. Ladies and gentlemen, you're good together panel. Now, Bury St Edmunds has the smallest pub in Britain, the Nutshell, found on the Travis opposite the Corn Exchange, measuring a pitchy 15 by 7 feet in all time. So, panel, the all-important question, does size matter? Andy Oliver, let's start with you.
Well, I know the Nutshell, obviously.
Of course
very well from my youth. Size matters in terms of food.
Yes.
I don't really like giant food. I feel like there's a direct sort of flavour to size ratio thing. The bigger the large something is, the less flavour it has. I love a little baby courgette or a baby carrot or a tiny bit of potato. Those things that I feel that the flavour's intensified and in focus. You get massive vegetables, they tend to be quite watery and not tasty anything.
Dr. Annie Gray.
I think food's got too big. Portions in particular. I'm the kind of person that has graphs of plate sizes through the centuries.
The type of person, are there a lot of you?
There might not be. And plates have got significantly bigger over the centuries, partly to do with service style change when we switched to central serving, and partly in the last 50 to 60 years when you look at size of dinner plates, they've got big. And you see that in portion sizes a lot in restaurants as well. And I don't like it. I like the old-fashioned way of dining. I like surgery, you have things on the table, or sharing plates or tapas. Call it what you will. Lots of little things. You can taste everything on the table. I don't want all of one eating.
Easter Belfridge.
I've got to agree with Andy on the size of food. I don't want anything too big. I kind of take a Goldilocks approach when it comes to food, so not too big, not too small, just right. I don't want to see a huge onion or a sort of a chicken that doesn't look like it can support the way of its own legs.
Small and wonky.
Yeah.
Tim Hayward, when you stand on it.
I'm more with the Nutshell when it comes to kitchen size. I realised a few years ago that I'd spent, like many people, I've sort of grown up wanting to have bigger and bigger kitchens. You either want your kitchen to be like a professional kitchen, huge, or like a stately home kitchen, or a farmhouse kitchen, really large. I've gone on to moving as aspiring to larger and larger kitchens, and then I realised that you're walking 5 minutes to get from the Arga to the fridge, and it's just not how it's supposed to be. In fact, in a professional kitchen, you work with a station, not a whole kitchen. And now I cook in a very tiny kitchen, on a single gas ring most of the time, many less tools, smaller portions, smaller amounts, smaller pans. I find it so infinitely more rewarding.
So much like the Nutshell in Bury St Edmunds, sometimes less really. Let's take our first question from Ian Dawes from Wyndham. Hello everybody. We're tossing boiled cabbages at the moment.
From Wyndham?
Can you suggest
It's Norfolk.
interesting, inspirational way of preparing it? Alright, so Ian, well, my wife's from the green fingers of Rain Day at the moment, between 30 and 40. Okay. I've got an idea. Would anybody in the audience like a lot of our arms have gone up, so there's a lot of love for Savoy. Easter. I don't have to say what you do with Easter. So Easter, what do you do with the Savoy cabbage?
So yeah, last week I made a really lovely cabbage roll dish. So just sort of blanch the cabbage leaves, stuff them with, in this case I used lamb mince, some spices like allspice, pan fry it, and then I chucked a chili tomato broth in there. It's a really delicious meal.
That's a very good idea. Tim Hayward.
A lot of people don't realise how great brassicas are in salads. And I mean literally as all of the greens in a salad. Part of the trick is the salt that you might use to make the dressing. Chuck a handful of that in first, into the shredded cabbage, and grind it with your hands. And it kind of breaks up the leaves just a little bit, so that starts to soak dressing in. But it makes a really good salad.
Alright, so you can use it in salad, you can stuff it. And the other.
I agree with you, Tim. Maceration is a brilliant thing, so it breaks down that kind of harder edges of the cabbage. So I would shred it very finely and make like a grilled lemon roast garlic vinaigrette. Rub that into the cabbage, loads of beautiful spring onions through that as well, and just let it sit really tender, ambient temperature. The whole thing kind of collapses into this beautiful, gorgeous, delicious irony, beautiful mountains of food, and then perhaps just a few sort of rum-soaked, gin-soaked dishes. So instead of you've got to soak them in sultanas just to kind of spike it through and maybe a little fresh chili on top.
That was a very good speech. We liked that.
Did you like that?
Yeah, we did like that. Annie Gray.
Well, cabbage is one of those things that I've eaten a lot in the past, especially being a hamburger.
Crazy as well. That was part of our democracy. It's the extremists that I want taken out. Those who are breaking the law or those who are inciting others to break the law. And I agree with the commander of the Met that a bit of extra legislation that makes it illegal to promote terrorist organisations
你係咪冇生好毛？
like Hamas
你冇生好毛？
Hezbollah would be useful. If the head of the Met's falling for it, there's no reason in my view why we as politicians couldn't vote that through. Do that very quickly, and I think that'll pass unanimously in Parliament.
John Mann and Sean Bailey. Meanwhile this week, an intriguing power struggle was coming to a head over the question of whether a foreign state, in this case the United Arab Emirates, should be able to own a stake in the British media, in this case the Telegraph and Spectator. It was a media story with politics running through it. Baroness Tina Stoll, Conservative chair of the Lords Communications and Digital Committee, had come up with a plan to give Parliament a veto over foreign state ownership of British newspapers. With party support, it looked certain of success. At the last minute, the government said it would recall its own mechanism to block such takeovers. It was a saga with big ramifications for the UK media process. I caught up with Baroness Stoll and also tracked down Lionel Barber, my former boss at the FT and co-presenter of the podcast Media Confidential. I asked him to explain why the bid was so controversial.
It was a joint venture, although you'd never have known that the way the criticism came at it, between American Redbird IMI, led in this instance by Jeff Zucker, who used to run CNN, a very experienced television executive, and IMI, which is from Abu Dhabi, and they had the cash. And the problem, of course, was that UAE, the United Arab Emirates, did not have any kind of record on free speech as such in Abu Dhabi, and therefore it was cast very effectively by opponents from the outset as essentially a state takeover of the Daily Telegraph, and that sacked it pretty well from the outset.
And it's the state involvement, wasn't it? Because foreign ownership of British newspapers isn't at all unusual. As we know, Australians, Canadians have owned British newspapers. Japanese company Nikkei bought the FT while you were the editor. So, Tina Stoll, did Abu Dhabi control actually pose a real threat, especially given promises that they would set an independent editorial board of the Telegraph?
Well, it's about a principle. You know, for me, what the Telegraph Perspective deal showed or exposed was a weakness in our legal framework. And as this situation kept unfolding, it seemed to me the fact that we could end up with a situation where a foreign government could end up effectively controlling one of our national newspapers, you know, was wrong, flied in the face of everything that we've known about freedom of the press in this country for centuries. And because of the economic uncertainty in some parts of the news industry, this gap in the legal framework, if we didn't close it, this may be something that others could take advantage of. So clearly it will deal with this particular situation as far as the Telegraph and Spectator is concerned. But for me, it's a big impact.
Lionel Barber, do you accept that this bid, and it's still live, we should say, at the point of recording, do you think it actually did represent state control or potential state control of the British news?
I think it was more theory than practice, because I think the Abu Dhabi entity was really there to provide the money. The problem was the way the bid was constructed. Abu Dhabi was the senior partner in terms of the partnership, and I don't think that the bidders were quick enough to understand the ferocity of the assault. It's been quite hysterical, frankly. When you have Suella Braverman writing in the Telegraph saying that the UAE is no different really from China, it's just a total distortion.
The Telegraph and the Spectator are about as close as you can get to being the house journals of the Conservative Party. What were the politics at play?
Well, it's very simple. You have a weak government, fag end of the government, and you have a very effective campaign getting to Conservative MPs very quickly, people like Ian Duncan Smith, Robert Jenrick, and then mobilising 100+ MPs to say it's a foreign takeover. They framed it very well, and the Americans are looking I do think it's incredibly important to put this in bigger context. It's not just about Britain. If you look, I'm here in America, and in Washington, the House of Representatives passed a bill this week banning TikTok. TikTok has 150 million plus users in America, but they're essentially saying it's controlled by a Chinese entity. It's a national security threat. We can't have it. And so, really, you're seeing a nationalization. Britain first, America first, but treating with media. They're not football clubs, which, by the way, Miguel Barabenta does that in Manchester City.
Martinez, though, it's not often that the House of Lords effectively gets to write government policy. But you were helped, weren't you, by that kind of tidal wave of political anger that Lionel was just describing.
What I did, and when I laid that amendment, I did it completely off my own back. I hadn't sort of sought to design that kind of reaction. But clearly, I'm pleased with what we've been able to achieve. You know, the British government has never got involved in our news industry, and that's because freedom of the press is about freedom from the government. So if we don't allow the British government to get involved, why would we allow a foreign government to do so? And the amendment that the government has committed to bringing forward, I think, is a very good way forward. They're going to make it very clear on the face of the bill that a foreign state entity would be prohibited from controlling, owning, or influencing one of our news organisations. But they've also committed to bringing forward a piece of secondary legislation which will define what an indirect foreign government investment is. And the important thing about that carve-out is to allow the legitimate kind of investment that is already happening. We wouldn't want to prohibit that because that's also an important part of the future sustainability of our news industry. But it's got to be passive and very legitimate and non-controlling kind of investment.
Lionel Barber, what happens now? I imagine Rishi Sunak's going to get some favourable coverage in the Daily Telegraph over the next few days. But then what happens to the titles?
Well, he's going to reopen the auction. Rupert Murdoch is definitely interested in The Spectator. He's not in the wider Telegraph group. Paul Marshall, I think, now comes in the Daily Telegraph group. So my question would be, who else is prepared to put that kind of money in to strengthen the Daily Telegraph brand and make it international and preserve jobs?
And finally, Peter Stoll, to you, thanks to your deft crafting of this amendment, you basically had the Prime Minister over a barrel. Has he spoken to you? Is he grateful to you for what you did?
No, I've not spoken to the Prime Minister, so I don't know what his personal view is on this at all, but my point would be it's important to draw that distinction between foreign business and foreign private individuals and their investment in our news industry from foreign governments. And until such time that we would allow the UK government to start investing in our news organisations, I think it would be very wrong for us to be in a situation where foreign governments could do so.
Go on, come on.
Peter Stoll and Lionel Barber. Plenty of action then in the Commons and Lords this week. But they were also busy down on committee corridor, where Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, was explaining to MPs on the Treasury Committee his long-term plan to scrap national insurance, building on the 4p cut in the levy he'd announced in his last two fiscal statements. But will Mr Hunt ever achieve his ambition? Could any Chancellor appear to do it? And what's the economic situation looking like in election year and beyond? Who better to explain than Nick Macpherson, Lord Macpherson, Permanent Secretary of the Treasury from 2006 to 2016. Seen plenty of chancellors and economic cycles come and go. I asked him if he was surprised that the Chancellor chose to cut national insurance rather than income tax.
I was a bit surprised because history suggests that governments put up national insurance generally to finance cuts in income tax. As a former Treasury official, I'm really in favour of cutting national insurance. National insurance is paid on earnings from work. So workers pay national insurance. You stop paying it when you reach pension age. Cutting national insurance is a way of supporting people in work. So in my view, Mr Hunt has been doing the right thing. Whether politically he will get credit for it is another matter. Certainly the long-term orthodoxy of the Conservative Party going way back, we would like to do that.
Louise Hay.
Well, look, Mark, to say that the world needs to move on after your largest donor has said that the
female MP, 66, I think is disgraceful. You know, the week that your government has launched a new definition of extremism that is based on trying to make sure that extremist groups do not receive taxpayers' money, I think it is a deep, deep irony that it has been revealed that this man said that Diane Abbott makes him hate black
哥哥，
people.
可唔可以打電話俾媽咪問媽咪
Diane Abbott has faced the
有冇嘢要買？
levels of abuse, more abuse than any other female MP combined, according to reports in the last parliament. And we have seen two MPs in the short time since I was elected.
你知唔知媽咪嘅電話喺邊啊？
I think using language like that is deeply, deeply irresponsible.
Okay.
It is undeniably misogynistic and racist. And if you and your party were serious about tackling extremism, there is absolutely no doubt that you would return every penny of that donation.
喂？你係咪有嘢？係咪有嘢要買？
Why did you call him out? Why did you condemn
要買咩菜啊？
Chancellor? Why did you call out Angela Rayner when she said the story of school?
We have repeatedly
Goldie.
called out people that have said such things. There are countless examples
Audi 咯。
where we've called out colleagues in categories such as
哦
and I can
哦
now say
，OK，
Angela Rayner was
而家翻嚟啊！
Frank Hester has refused to acknowledge that these comments
好，拜拜。
understand how you can accept the politics. He doesn't recognise that these comments are real.
But when senior union officials make that domestic comment, why aren't you using donation?
有冇綁住帶啊？你嗰個？
They are made up of millions of members working people. They're not beholden to individual.
你知唔知你嗰嚿嘢咧，擺咗電話嗰嚿嘢喺度唔綁住帶咧，真係截晒個，輸晒。你插咗盒，你撞車嗰時個頭喺度撞咗嚿嘢喺度。
Well, I would say what Frank Hester said is right. I was alleged so that you take that to the what you had reported. In my view, it is racist. It is unacceptable. I think from a business perspective, when we seek to attract investors to the UK, those investors look at our political systems and look at how it's funded, how it's organised, and look at who's making those donations. And instances like this are unhelpful because it deters some of those investors. institutions, including political parties, they don't stand up for a set of values that are based on equality.
Just on that point, Mark, of course, that was the essence really of Duncan's question. It's about this reputational damage to the Conservative Party. Are you concerned about that?
So, I mean, of course, I don't believe that thing.
哥，爸爸又去買咗嘢先啦。哥，爸爸又去買咗嘢先啦。哥。
Delivering, and that's what we're working towards. But of course, you can only do that if the economy and people are in employment and paying tax. Now, the way you motivate them to do that is by making sure they can keep as much of their wages as they can, but take enough of the state in. That's what the national insurance book is about motivating people to work, but making sure we get that balance right.
But is it enough for the savings? Because
you get it wrong, of course. You get it wrong, you overtax people, then unemployment goes up, like we've seen from every central government in history, and the whole thing collapses.
We actually found that the numbers of economically inactive people affected were from this budget. So for the first time since the post-pandemic peak, the numbers of people out of work were to 9.3 million people.
Wow, what is it?啊，仲係俾人捉喎。
The country has the highest tax on real estate, paying up taxes from low rate, and it's January 4.5%. Quite wealthy, you get some growth, January started to 4 months any growth. But so there are many competing priorities. Business will invest, business wants to invest, but if you see a stable environment to invest, transparency is about that, and consistent government policy, that gives the confidence to put in money. So there's always specifics. We've all had terrific school meals, no doubt, in the past. I remember chocolate selling the pudding, I couldn't stand it. But I saw the tuna on the back of the page and I felt sorry for the going to try and do that.
Can I just ask you from a business perspective? We do hear from Labour and the Conservatives about the need for profit for private.
你有冇同佢哋玩？
Do you think that the conditions at the moment are right for that, and are you optimistic about it?
Well, I mentioned net zero in the earlier question. There's 15 billion for investment, which is private sector
But they also need to talk real fast.
in decarbonisation and moving away from fossil fuels. So for that to happen,
I come from sort of left academic area, this is providing the accessibility to lighting, accessibility to education, providing the elderly with easier access to facilities and health and able to sort of navigate. So I think it's in good stead, both for sort of social and sort of the economic sort of factors in our Thank you very much. So exactly as Max articulated, the single bus lane agreement is currently passed. That's currently running up until December, the end of this year. It's already been extended. But Max wants to know, a Labour or Conservative group, do you think that you do that ahead of the election? Do we say this is your brief? It is, and Max, I'm so pleased you asked about it because actually in my brief in transport terms, train often take up so much of the headroom, not least because journalists and politicians tend to get the train and the hard. I, obviously live in Sheffield, but work in London, so I have to get the train twice a week. But it's actually buses that millions of people depend on across the country, and by far and away the most popular form of public transport. Right, so it is, as you said, Alice, it's committed up to the end of the year at the moment. We've not yet set out our funding plans beyond that, but where we are committed to is the biggest reform of buses in the generation, and in fact the biggest reform of public transport in generation. So at the moment, as you know, we don't have a mayor, but it is only areas that have mayors in the country that are able to take back control of their local bus services, and that means in an area like this, you've got private bus operators and some of them provide fantastic service, but local people, local leaders don't have any control or any accountability for those operators, and it means they can set whatever routes they want and pick and choose depending on how comfortable they are. Whereas in areas like London and Greater Manchester now, because Andy Burnham has just taken back control of his buses, he can set the network, contract that out and say what routes and services that he wants to run, and we think that that ability and that power should be in every area of the country, and the communities should have control over those routes, services and assets. Can I take then that from that is you're not committing at this stage to keeping the £2 cap? I can't commit today, I'm afraid. Are you looking at it though? Would you want to? Of course we're looking at our wider transport policy in terms of okay, thank you. Mark Spencer, will you commit to it?
So I'm enormously proud actually of our record on this. I think it's a great asset to young people and to anybody who wants to use the bus services in the East Midlands. I think our £2 fare is something we should be very proud of. It's a very good example of actually the Conservative government investing in public services and making sure that benefits our communities. And I'm also very conscious that access to good public transport and to good transport links leads to good job opportunities and good career prospects. So, I think in the cash we're going to drag from central government into the East Midlands via the East Midlands men, Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. Ben Bradley, the Conservative candidate, has already committed to investing heavily in our public transport.
There are other candidates available.
Yeah, but I think he's been specifically talking about it.
Approaching the mayoral election,
Of course. So I think I said on my track record, I'll have track record of really powerful investment in that out there, which people seem to benefit, and I think there's more we can do.
Are you going to keep it?
Well, obviously, I'm not the Chancellor Exchequer, and I'm not about to set our budget for this, but I think our track record speaks for itself, and I'm very proud.
Thank you.
Today, and certainly payments. Unfortunately, this also means we will not be able to deliver the vast majority of today's groceries. One line is
A court in Hong Kong has handed down prison sentences of up to 7 years to 12 people convicted in connection with the storming of the city's legislature at the height of anti-government protests 5 years ago. Most have been found guilty of rioting. People in India will start voting in national elections from the 19th of April in the world's biggest democratic exercise. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and his party, the BJP, is looking to win a third term in office. One of the oldest and most prestigious film studios new Egyptian films and television series have been produced at the studio since it was founded 8 years ago. BBC News.
In an hour here on Radio 4, we have a docudrama about family relationships, national identity and commerce, created from recordings collected in department stores across the UK. Family Business is at 3 o'clock. But now it's time for Any Answers with Anita Arndt.
Tom, thanks very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to Any Answers. So, what a week for the Conservatives. I wonder what you made of the party's decision not to return Frank Hester's millions after his comments about Diana Keating-Wright. Dominant news agenda this week is holding on to the money, causing more reputational damage than it's worth. Does what you've seen or what you've heard this week change your voting intent? I'd love to hear from you. 03700 100 444 is the number to call. A head teacher in Southampton made news, did you see, when his complaints about the school dinners being served at his own school went viral. So I'd really love to know, if you're a parent or a grandparent, what are the children getting on their plates? Is it good enough? And if it's bad, what should the government be doing to fix this? 03700 100 444. Again, teachers, parents, caterers, children, I'd love to hear from all of you. Is prime agricultural land being taken up for net zero energy projects where you live? I'd love to know what you think about this. Is it good for the environment? Is it bad for food security? If you're a farmer, if you live near a stretch of arable land, I'm sure you'll have a view on this. 03700 100 444. And one of our questions wanted all the main parties to commit to the £2 cap on bus fares. So is that something that you benefit from? Tell me how joined up the transport and infrastructure is where you live in rural Britain. And what are the main challenges that you face? Do you think any politicians understand? 03700 100 444. Text us 84844. Text for charge to the standard message rate, or you can tweet us for free. Hashtag BBCAQ. So far, most of you reacting to Frank Hester's donation and what the Conservatives have decided to do about it. Let's take your calls on this. Our first is Joe Burton, calling this from Scarborough. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Joe. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I want to make a point that I really don't want this aspect
In some ways, and those two children were taken into care. Yep. And a High Court judge, as part of that custody ruling, did an investigation into this case and ruled, her words were that this is absolutely baseless. Anybody who perpetrates these lies is evil and is foolish, just as people announced. And actually, instead of setting the record straight, that actually inadvertently called fuel on the fire. So I think people thought, well, the cover-up is endemic. The courts are involved. It's spread to the courts. Because that's, that's the thing. For those listening again to this, Anna, coming new to it, and it's not new to you, sadly, you might just think, well, once it's been closed, case closed, can't you just move on at this point? But it carried on, didn't it?
Absolutely. As Emily said, it fueled the fire just as quickly as the court fueled the fire. I think a lot of the people in the conspiracy world are very much of the belief that the family courts are secret, not that they're closed and behind closed doors for privacy and confidentiality, but the courts are secret and they're taking children away from their families in order to feed to the sort of elite pedophiles within the justice system and the parliamentary world. So it fuels their fire.
And a list of names of the children's names were put online with their addresses.
That's correct. And really, lots of people might say, well, why would you fight back against all of this? And I think the real difference for us was that you're correct, there were two class lists from Ella Draper's daughter's class and from Hassan's class, which were published in the hands of Steve McNeil alongside Ella.
Steve McNeil's another character to make sure that the person within this family charged with for us because of the part she played in the conspiracy.
Correct. But so what we had were all of these allegations, our names, our addresses, our children's names in full, our full home addresses, our telephone numbers, our email addresses, everything that you might have on a very innocent class list in order to arrange a payday has suddenly been published online and alongside with all of the allegations. So all of a sudden you have people believing that you are abusing your children and they're wanting to come and rescue those children from us. So people were coming off of the internet. It became real world harassment. We had people coming to the school, coming to the church every Sunday, police officers undercover on our school gates on drop off and pick up for weeks on end. And we were literally watching people on Facebook saying, well, I've got a truck and I can be in Hampstead tomorrow, and why don't you just sort of come en masse and rescue the children? And our names and addresses, the children's names and addresses are online. So it's not just as simple as shutting the laptop and thinking, well, why don't you just ignore it?
What effect did this have on you? Has it had on you?
At the time it was horrific, and for many years afterwards it was horrific. This abuse just grew, and it was every day, it was relentless, and every time any material, we were successful in taking that material down, it was like whack-a-mole. Somebody would have saved it, our names and addresses, and they would repost it. And it never sort of really died down. It was just incessant for a number of years. And, it's still there. It's the fabric of our lives, and the internet can never really forget, although we've been successful in order to take down. There'll always be somebody that wants to repost it, and it's never really truly going to go away.
I know we're not doing anything like your identity. So in the area, have you been able to carry on in the way that you were before in some way?
I think it's taken a long time to sort of regain some peace, if that's the right word. And I live not a million miles away from the area, but I think our children now are a lot older. This did take place 9 years ago. They're all healthy, happy, well-adjusted adults that who are now living their lives and getting on with going to university and college, etc., as they should be doing.
Which is, I suppose, the goal when you're fighting something.
Yeah.
As awful as this. And the other striking thing for those listening, well, what happened to the original Angela Draper and her boyfriend Abraham? Is it right that they never faced charge? They fled using wind weather, about the abuse that the children suffered at the hands of both of them in order to gain these videos, and they remained to be sort of on the run, so to speak. So they've never faced accountability for their actions. Just a final word then on that to you. I mean, when you're trying to, Anna, feel some sense of closure or something, is that difficult to live with?
I think so. I think if the police had, in the first couple of weeks, done a better job and arrested them, then we may not have had to have suffered years and years of abuse. It would have shut it down straight away.
Mum Anna there, not sure her name, and the director of that documentary, Emily Turner. And the documentary, Accused, the Hampstead Paedophile Farm hoax, is now available to watch on All4. Now, the weather is improving, and with it, we've inched closer to a summer of women's sport. From the Paris Olympics to the 2020 cricket series, there's something for everyone. First on the calendar is the Women's Six Nations. Wales, Scotland, Ireland, France, and Italy are taking part, as well as England, who are looking to build on the glory of 2023, when the team sealed that Grand Slam win in front of nearly 60,000 spectators at Twickenham, a record crowd for a women's rugby game. We will continue to cover all of the UK nations that make up the Six Nations as it gets underway, but to kick us off, Emma was joined by England rugby player Meg Jones, and it began by telling her about what we can expect from the tournament.
I think the best thing is the fact that it's now a standalone tournament. So it was coinciding with the men's campaign, but now it's a standalone tournament. So it means more rugby across all months, which is amazing. I think from the women's perspective, amazing market as well. The game itself, I'd hope we're a bit more exciting in terms of running rugby, but also just putting on a spectacle for the spectators, which I think is part of it. So yeah, we've got Italy first up on the 24th of March. Again, which will be amazing because Italian rugby's grown massively over the years, and England are favourites. We're keen to start the campaign off with a high. So yeah, we're looking to win it all, get Grand Slam, and keep our winning streak. So yeah, every game's going to be really competitive for us.
Picking up a bit of Welsh accent there, but you play for England. Tell us a bit about that. Not the most conventional.
Yeah, I can never hide it as well. I'm half Cardiff as well, so I think it makes it a bit worse. But yeah, I say we're probably better really. But yeah, no, my mum's from Bristol, so I qualified to play for England. Dad's Cardiff boy, so yeah, I was born and raised in Cardiff. Made the decision to jump ship when I was about 16. Jumped over to Gloucester Harvard College, where I did my A-levels. So I just made the decision with women's rugby not being professional, having the first professional contract
2014 for England, and then for the Welsh women, it's only been the last year or so where they've had professional contracts. So yeah, I think in contrast to the men, again, Bobby Brown and Blues, and then 40 contracts in 1996. So yeah, big disparity in when we started becoming pro. So yeah, I just thought, short career, need to make both out of it, and William was the best option for me.
Really pragmatic, I like it. A woman after my own heart. But I imagine sometimes causes a bit of a headache in the house when you have to decide, or the family have to decide who they're supporting.
Oh, massively, yeah. I think my dad always said, I always support you. And I'm like, okay, now obviously he's just supporting me in other teams and such that. But he's a huge supporter. He's been massive in my journey. Little things like he used to unstitch the Red Roses badge off of some of the kit I'd get him. And he said he could wear it down the pub. So yeah, he's still a proud man for me.
I love that image of that. It's a striking one, but it is growing, with the support for the game, and I'm sure you must be feeling that, and that momentum also must be important for the team as it's going in as the favourites.
Yeah, massively. I think as well we've got a World Cup in 2025, so it'll be in England. We as a nation are pushing that because we want to win, because we haven't won since 2014. So that's our bigger picture. Obviously, Six Nations was first up, and it's going to put us in a good position. We've got new coaches and staff, some new players coming in. Again, having a standalone form just means we're able to market it a bit better, and also show our talent as well. But also we get a lot of staff from the men's team to come to the women's team, so that will almost equal opportunity there, which is amazing. So yeah, I think the noise around it is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I suppose in some ways you've got to prepare for people knowing more about you and who you are, and we've had a bit of a discussion this morning as often can be a little bit of the terrain here on Women's Hour about what it's like being in the public eye and how people react. Are you prepared for that? How do you feel about that side of things?
Yeah, I think since my first 2016 podcast foundation, we always spoke about how important your image was on social media. So I remember going back into Facebook and deleting photos, and this is my first account actually. Wouldn't have been a name as such. So we've definitely been taught quite a bit, and particularly learning how to football as well. You see so much online now. I think football get quite a lot of heat. I think just because of the prestige on it, but you almost want to avoid reading some of the comments. It does rattle you. Yeah, I think it's just about understanding the reason why you do it.
And what is the reason? Like, take me there. Take me to the pitch. What's it like in your mind when you play? How do you feel? What gets you to want to do this?
From a young age, I started at 6. It just gave me a sense of belonging, and the fact that my gender did not matter. I go to this team as the only girl, and yes, okay, people can say, oh, it's a girl on the team, or I'm not tackling the girl. But the thing was, when they saw me play, they just said, wow, I want Meg on my team. I want to be involved. I want a team full of Meg Jones, which was amazing because it then showed me from a young age, maybe I wasn't conscious of it then, but it showed me that your gender doesn't matter. As long as you provide the work and you show that you're capable of producing something on the pitch, in any line of work, your gender is irrelevant. So my opportunity should be the same.
England rugby player Meg Jones there, and the Women's Six Nations kicks off on Saturday, the 23rd of March. For the past few years, maximalism has been all the rage in the interior design world. And for some, they've found wisdom and inspiration on social media to ditch the beige and really go there with their home decor. But what are the pros and cons of adding personality to your home? And can more extreme decor impact the sale of your house? Pottery artist Mary Rose Young painted her house from top to bottom in bright colours and patterns, including the ceiling. Kate Sandu is an interiors influencer and founder of Kate Sandu Renovations. She found that her maximalist house won her lots of followers on social media, but when it came to selling, she had to paint it all white. Emma began by asking Mary Rose about what she's done to her house.
I've done everything. I've maximalised it totally, I think, put it in a nutshell. Well, I started years ago when I first bought the house, and it needed a bit of character instilling into it. So I used some of the designs from my pottery and the colours that I was already using on the inside of the house, and it a light and made it really lovely and fun, and it just had a lot of attention from the media at that time, and it just kind of spurred me on. And
It is incredible, and as a foremost radio lover, this is the only time I ever feel when we have these sorts of discussions, I'm on the wrong platform, because not being able to show our listeners, we will try and share some of this, if we can, on the Women's Hour website, some images so you get the sense. Kate, just to come to you, like gold stairs and pattern wallpaper, a lot of people, this is in your previous place, really loved it online, but then I mentioned it was an issue when you came to sell. I am a maximalist too. I have a lot of different types of wallpaper. We're talking pink and white stripes on one wall, chinoiserie, Chinese style on another. Am I going to have to buy, if I ever lose, a load of white paper clips?
Maybe, but in a way, I guess, does it matter? Because I think the important thing is, you know, there was something like outrage that we like sort of how we pack your wallpaper down and painting things, but I think big picture, we enjoy the household there. There's no way that someone's going to buy it and have the exact same taste. So I think, you know, it's really important to just enjoy your home, treat it like your kind of palette. It's kind of, you know, an extension of your piece of art in itself. And then if you need to change it to sell it, then so be it. Because the bigger picture is you kind of want to move on to your next kind of project and next adventure, I guess. So
I mean, that's huge pragmatism, of course, but you did, we should say, just so people realise you had to arrive at that, you put it on the market, and it didn't go straight away, did it? You had to have that moment of realising.
Yeah, it was, so it took a couple of, we had it on the market for 2 weeks, and, you know, maybe we were slightly arrogant, but it was that time that when, especially we were in London, things were flying off the market, so for me it was a little bit offensive. We thought, oh, brilliant, and like, but oh, we'll hope it goes to mine, and actually we just pulled it off the market, stepped back and thought, well, you know what, just got to swallow your pride and think, let's just do what we need to do to get it sold, and exactly ended up to start fresh somewhere else. But yeah, it was a little bit defeated, it was, picked over the gold stairs was slightly sad moment, but, you know,
You did it.
not normally said.
No, I mean, I would, but that's just me. We seem to be coming from the same place. And so, to you, Mary Rose Young, and have you ever thought, Mary, about the fact that others, what will happen to your property at some point, and others may not be of the same view?
Yeah, not really, but kind of just like it so much. I'm so into it, and everyone that comes loves it so much. I never really think that as far as changing it into a white house, because it would just look grey, because it's kind of dark and by its nature, it's set down to the road. So no, really.
No, and more is more is more. Is that the motto?
So the straight line in the wall of the whole concept of house, and it's such a successful sort of thing. It makes me feel so happy, and my customers happy, and people who go to the house are happy. So, you know, it's a no-brainer, really.
Mary Rose Young and Kate Santy. And that is all from me on Weekend Woman's Hour. Emma will be back on Monday at 10. She'll be speaking to actor Imogen Poots about her new role as Rose Dovedale, who will share us a revolutionary in the new film Baltimore, and our series on how pornography shapes our sex lives and relationships continues. You don't want to miss it. Until then, have a great weekend.
Weekend Woman's Hour was presented by Claire McDonald. The producer was Claire Fox. Antisocial on BBC Radio 4. Cancel culture is around.
They're trying to cancel our country.
Cutting through the polarisation and pylons of social media.
It's almost like a sort of endless loop of people pointing fingers at each other.
Shedding light on divisive issues with informed perspectives from both sides. Two executives at Cardiff.
They think that if you don't engage with yourself, you must hate it, which isn't the same thing.
Antisocial with me, Adam Fleming, on BBC Sounds and Radio 4.
There should be the line in the sand to say, look, this is where this stops.
Live on Fridays at midday. This is BBC Radio 4. It's 5 o'clock. time for Saturday PM with Caroline Wyatt. Sainsbury's and now Tesco find technical issues with contactless payments in shops and online delivery.
It's very much a first world problem in case you can't have groceries delivered to the front door. But it is time consuming still putting in your online delivery order, especially if you're a busy mum like I am.
In the past half hour, Sainsbury's have said payments and online grocery orders are back to normal. We'll assess what happened and the impact it had. Also on PM, Labour's Warren Jeffing has become the new First Minister of Wales, Europe's first black leader. Today, more dangerous than the online scrutiny faced by the current Princess of Wales. Catherine has performed no public duties since having abdominal surgery in January. This week, she had to explain why a photograph of her with her children was edited. She was asked what he thought of the situations both women dealt with.
I look back to 97 and Diana's death. I think that was so shocking the circumstance of her death is so shocking that it did make the industry that supports the paparazzi really consider more carefully what it could and couldn't do. Not because they had a moral judgment, but because it was unacceptable to the public.
The full interview with Al Spencer will be broadcast tomorrow from 9 a.m. on Sunday with Laura Koonsberg on BBC One. Police have begun an investigation after 50 dead hares, a barn and a kestrel were dumped outside a community shop in Hampshire. They were found early yesterday morning in the village of Broughton, south of Andover. Officers say they want to identify the owner of a silver Suzuki Grand Vitara seen in the area Thursday night. Wales have finished bottom of the Six Nations table after losing 24-21 at home to Italy. It's the first time since 2003 that Wales have entered the tournament with a wooden spoon. Italy have had their best ever campaign with 2 wins and a draw. In football, there's been an upset in the first of the FA Cup quarter-finals. Coventry City at the Championship scored 2 stoppage-time goals to beat Premier League side Wolves 3-2. Thanks, Lisa. Sainsbury's have apologised for what they say is a technical issue related to software updates last night. It's meant they weren't able to fulfil the vast majority of online deliveries today. Some of the shops have had issues with contactless payments, others learning to accept cash. Within the past half hour or so, Sainsbury's told us contactless payments were now back up and running in all their stores, also all over the groceries online ordering system is working as normal. Customers can place an order for delivery anytime from tomorrow. The statement says, we apologise to customers who have been caused by technical issues today. Thank you for bearing with us. Separately, Tesco has said that technical issues forced it to cancel a small number of deliveries on Saturday. It has also apologised. We'll move to Charles McCann, who lives in Chester. She's a Sainsbury's customer.
So we placed our order for our weekly shop, kind of like we do most weeks in Sainsbury's really. Woke up this morning, I just noticed that our payment hadn't been taken, which seemed unusual. And it was due to be coming between 9 and 10 this morning, so we were making plans to get out at 10 o'clock, and then at 9:30 noticed an alert on my phone from the BBC News app saying there was this big outage and that we weren't to get out.
And did you hear anything from Sainsbury's itself, or try to get through to them?
I called them up initially when I saw that to have like a holding message. To be honest, I didn't bother holding up because I didn't really think I'd get many answers. But I think their communication on this has just been really, really poor, to be honest, for customers like myself and for however many other people that have been affected by it. You know, for us it's an inconvenience, but we can get out of the shops. Other people aren't in that position, they're reliant on these deliveries. So I think the fact that they weren't more proactive and that they were putting the onus on the customers themselves to find out what was happening, I don't think it's good enough.
Will you carry on ordering online with Sainsbury's?
I'm a bit loath to say that I have already remade my order Monday through Sainsbury's, but it has kind of shaken the faith in them a little bit, and obviously if something was to happen again, then probably not, but kind of time will tell on this one, I suppose.
Sainsbury's customer Tom. So what went wrong for Sainsbury's and for Tesco today was once McDonald's yesterday who suffered similar problems with IT. Ryan Knights is a retail technology analyst. She's on the line now. Good afternoon. because so many big firms are having tech problems around about the same time? Is it clear what happened?
It's still emerging what's happened. I think there's going to be some post-mortems going on within these companies for a very, very long time because of the public nature of the outages and the inconveniences your Sainsbury's customer just there described. McDonald's described it as a configuration change. Since Sainsbury's talked about software update issues, overnight update, Tesco's has cited technical issues. I think at the end of the day, they're unrelated, but it does highlight the importance of rigorous people, process and technology coming together to make sure that these systems are tested. And if there is a major...
I remember dealing with all sorts of things, like when we put the wrong petrol in the wrong pumps and somebody decided to kill their wife and poisoned our things at the end of the day. It's quite interesting at the end of the day, and I think that the big problem is at the end of the day it's the store manager and the people who have to pick up things like that. When they're doing online ordering, those are people who do an automatic every week odd lane shopper, and if they miss a day, that's all right. But sometimes people are really concerned if they pick in a big order and they want the first to take or they want something like that. And it's very, very difficult for the store manager to find, this is a special customer or this is an ordinary order. And that's the difficulty that people can't sort out. And it's really upset.
That doesn't suggest that these kind of moments of customer service is paramount, isn't it?
Well, there's no customer service in stores, it's all done online, things like that. But in the old days, when I was at Sainsbury's, there was a sort of problem. Store manager would pick it up and go and deliver a birthday cake or something like that. It doesn't happen like that. And I think that they'll look about it, they'll get over this hiccup. But at the end of the day, people will think, do I really trust them again to give them an order on something that's really special?
How loyal are customers? I mean, do those supermarkets quite literally fail because they run the risk of actually losing customers? Is that right?
Yes, they do, because we've got so much choice within a few miles and everything like that, or you do it online, so it's not just as easy as that at the end of the day. People build a relationship, and I don't think that Sainsbury's have actually got it right, because a store manager can look at an order from somebody locally and say, sorry Mrs. Brown or Mrs. Brown, we weren't able to deliver, can I help you? And that's the bit, the trust of the local bit that's gone.
Teresa Wickham, former advisor to Sainsbury's, thank you. For the first time, the devolved government in Wales was led by a British politician. The economy minister was elected leader of the Welsh Labour Party. He succeeded Craig as first minister, and is Craig formally steps down next week. And together with Zambia to arrive at the today, two of the in the book of our a history that we write together, not just because I have the honour of becoming the first black leader in any European country, because a generational dial has jumped to. Devolution is not something I have had to get used to, or to adapt, or to apologise for. Devolution, Welsh solutions to Welsh problems and opportunities, is in my blood. It's what I've always known through my adult political life. It means that as of next week, for the first time, none of the UK's supporters will be run by man. Ruth Mazalski is the political editor of Wales, and she joins us now. Was Morgan your popular choice within his party, or did you maybe lose some votes thanks to the controversy over campaign data?
Well, the result was very close. There was 51% for Griffin versus Jeremy Miles, so it sort of shows just how close it was between two men. There wasn't a lot about them different in terms of policy. There wasn't a lot really about them different in personality, if we're really honest.
Von Gethin, I think, probably did lose some support, although he's briefed otherwise today, for taking donations from a man convicted of environmental offences, despite claiming in his manifesto he's going to come down tougher on people that commit such offences themselves. It definitely changed the tone of the debate, and it has absolutely shaped the conversations around it since the result was announced this morning.
And Von Gethin came to Wales as a child. He said he and his family experienced racial prejudice at the time, but he's also spoken about how much things have changed.
Yeah, he tells a story about his dad, who was a GP, coming to Wales for a job, and when he arrived, he was told that his family wouldn't be welcome there, so they promptly left, went to Dorset in England, where he spent his first few years, and then Von Gethin came back to Wales. He can tell stories from throughout his life about racism, as most people can. He tells stories about university and in the years since, and he says it's only sort of since he got a public profile that those incidents have died down, but he will still say that his siblings, for example, are affected. He is being very clear through this campaign that the reason he wanted to talk about his race and to talk about his background was to show that in lots of Wales has moved on, but there's lots of work to do, and he wants to be that role model for the people, and he wants to show people like his own son that he wants to make that difference.
And what does he think of Modi, Hindu nationalist BJP, is widely tipped to win a third consecutive term? Samir Hussain is the BBC South Asia correspondent and spoke to us from the big marketplace in Delhi and asked her whether the result was a foregone conclusion.
In some ways, I believe that many analysts think that, yes, it's pretty much going to be a foregone conclusion that Mr. Modi will win yet another term in office. He's already been in the position of Prime Minister for a decade, and his popularity remains almost at 80%, which is pretty much unheard of. I mean, if you look at some, national polls in the UK, for example, you see that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's popularity is nowhere near that. But I think what is interesting to look at is just how much more they can gain in terms of seats. Now, his party has said that they want to have an even stronger majority. Whether that's going to be possible is still unclear.
How has India changed over those 10 years under Mr. Modi? Are some voters concerned about the direction the country is taking?
It's interesting. I've actually been speaking with voters on this day because they've announced their elections. And in terms of concerns for voters, a lot of it has to do with the economy. And although, an often quoted statistic is that India's economy is set to become the third largest in the next decade. And impressive as that is, there's still a large population that is struggling with unemployment. One of the things that the Prime Minister has been successful at is these so-called welfare schemes, so giving people rations in the form of food grains and in terms of cooking gas, and that has netted him some support in the polls. But on the other hand, I think that this Hindu nationalist agenda has been somewhat alienating for the country's minorities, particularly Muslims in this country, which is the country's largest minority.
And what does the election announcement now mean for the negotiations on a possible trade deal between the UK and India?
There was a lot of hope that this trade deal was going to happen before the announcement of these elections, but there were, in the negotiation process, as they negotiate trade deals, what they often do is they hammer out all the easy issues first, and it's those thorny, sticky details that are always left to the end. And despite efforts by the UK government to try and get it over the line before they called the election, that just didn't happen. In fact, there was a UK delegation that was in Delhi just last week. And now that they have called the election, the government is not negotiating any trade deals, or any deals for that matter, during this time. So any kind of negotiation for a trade deal would have to happen once the new government is in place, which should happen sometime in the month of June.
Samir Hussain from Delhi. The pianist Nicholas McCarthy won over
So yes, in order to achieve that, speed is quite close to ally, where I'm playing a bass note and I'm really quick coming up to the top of the piano. wanted to give people a real snapshot of my repertoire, because most people haven't heard of left-hand repertoire, or if they have, they might have heard of Ravel's Canonical Church with left hand, for instance. And I wanted to kind of, in one concert, let my audience leave knowing a huge amount of repertoire and the interesting stories behind these pieces. It's starting with Wagner Liszt, which is arranged for left hand by Paul Wittgenstein, because he lost his right hand during battle, and he came back, and he used his tithe, used his family wealth as well, in order to commission this celebrity 20th century composer to write left hand side works for him. So I thought I need to start my recital with one of his fantastic arrangements.
Week is amazingly good at encouraging people not just to play classical music, but to come and listen to it.
It's interesting, I find there's still British audiences, they always say, I'd love to come up, I don't know anything about classical music. I said, okay, so what do you listen to? And they say, oh, I love Adele or whoever. I said, so tell me what you know about Adele's chord progression. And obviously they don't know. I said, so what is it that you like about Adele? Well, I just like it. I said, that's it. That's all you need to do with classical music. You don't need to know anything about it.
And that's all from us at Track FM. Studio directors by Adrian Bargova, producers Emily Lewis and Harvey Stevens, PM editor Scott Adam, I'm Caroline Wyatt.
I've gone to GP having seen some ads on the box, and unfortunately the GP knew nothing about it, so that was a great deal of help. I do have a couple of golf mates who have, and they seem to think they do some good, but I would quite like to get some clarification because they're not inexpensive.
Thanks, Rick. I'm going to tackle these two in order, starting with TENS machines. Mr. Patrick is to hear what the science says. To try one of these devices, who better to guide me through than someone who has been investigating TENS machines since the 1980s. Professor of Pain and Analgesia at Leeds Beckett University, Director of the Centre for Pain Research there, Professor Mark Johnson.
Oh, hello,
Greg, nice to meet you. I have a TENS machine here. Yes. That's very nice. It's actually labelled as digital pain relief with TENS technology.
So I am going to untangle the wires.
Can you tell me what does TENS stand for?
Transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. It is a small handheld device that generates electrical currents, and these electrical currents are passed across the surface of the skin using little sticky electrode pads to stimulate nerves in the skin. Exactly what it says on the tin. If years ago, who shouldn't try one of these? The sorts of things that you shouldn't be using TENS for are where you might have an implantable pacemaker or an implantable spinal cord stimulator, and likewise if you've got cardiac problems, epilepsy, I'd be careful about using it without just checking with a healthcare professional.
Okay, well I've had a look through the instruction manual. I don't believe I tick any of those boxes, so I think I'm good to give it a go. It says on the box it's going to relieve joint, muscle, back, arthritic and hearing pain. In theory, Mark, how does a TENS machine relieve pain?
So the phrase we use is to electrically rub pain away, and whenever we're in pain, one of the things that we do is rub our skin. And when we rub our skin, we set up safety signals in our nerves that go up to the brain to produce a nice sensation. What TENS does is it from the off. We're not stimulating the muscles, we're stimulating nerves. And we're stimulating the nerves that go into the fingers.
The question is, do these help people relieve their pain? You've done a big study recently looking at all the evidence out there. What did you find?
Our big study, 381 clinical trials, all the data from 92 of these trials, and pulled it together, did a big statistical analysis to see if it's superior to a placebo TENS positivity or quality. What we found was that TENS, when it delivers it or it produces activity, has 20% reduction in pain. We class that as moderate severe case of variation. TENS a study with a team of researchers from the Beckett University, and the study was called an investigator-sponsored study. We managed to secure funding from GSK, the pharmaceutical company in the UK.
GSK, do they make these products? Is there a conflict of interest there?
No. To my knowledge, they're not selling cancer devices at present, or they haven't created their own devices. Of course, we've got independence on how we do the study and the findings of it, so we're completely independent to that company on reporting those findings.
The NHS say that there is not enough good quality scientific evidence to say for sure whether TENS machines work reliably.
I get where they're coming from, and some of the governing bodies like the Institute for Healthcare Excellence in the UK would recommend TENS to be funded within the healthcare system, because most of the studies that have been done to date have been evaluated according to the pain condition, osteoarthritis or low back pain. And there's just not sufficient studies in those areas to actually get an answer. But actually, there's little evidence to suggest that TENS effects differ between different pain conditions. Our argument was, for all studies that have gone into the big statistical test and see whether TENS reduces pain. And because of that, we got greater statistical power than some of the other reviews and evaluations that have been done to date.
Is there any evidence that certain pulse rates work better than others?
For many, many decades, there's been a belief that certain pulse frequencies are better for certain types of pain. When I talk to patients, they told me that they just twiddle around for a second, or whatever they find comfortable at that moment in time. And our big study did some subgroup analysis to see if different types of pain align with different types of pulse frequencies, and we find there's no relationship. When you look at the evidence, there isn't much to suggest particular settings are better for specific types of pain.
And just to be clear, you're saying that the TENS machine could help with pain relief, not with pain cure.
It's not curative, it's purely more.
Is it worth spending more? This chemist's own brand one was just under 50 quid. There are some on Amazon for around 20. I've seen branded ones for 70, 80 pounds.
Personally, I think it's the bog standard low-end one is a good starting point. You pay more as you get more technology in it. So some of the modern devices have interfaces with iPhones and have technology to be able to control the device from your phone.
I'm going to turn this off now. It's been a nice tingle for during our chat, but I'm going to turn it off for our final question, which is, when it comes to payment, are these TENS devices the best thing since sliced bread, or are they marketing BS?
I don't know if it's the best thing since, but it's definitely towards the sliced bread end of this sphere. You can use it whilst you're on your normal medication, you can use it.
Consultant vascular surgeon and council member at the Royal College of Surgeons in England, Ginny Bowman. Hi there, Ginny. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks for jumping on. Back to me. Listener Rick has asked me to look into circulation boosters. You've seen adverts for Novartis. Their product is a circular device that you put on the floor and you pop your feet onto the pad or flat surface at the top. And it claims to relieve achy legs and swollen feet and ankles by boosting your circulation. Other brands say the same sort of thing. Are these issues doubted?
So when you're looking at the website studies, it sort of talks about poor circulation and trying to lump everything all together. And actually, if you divide it up, the things that they're trying to talk about is either whether it's problems with the artery, so blood going down from the heart down into the leg, from the arterial supply, or the blood when it goes back to the vein, so from the feet to the heart, or from whether it's the swelling which can be due to something. So it's very complicated.
And what conditions could be caused by those different types of circulation issues?
So if you've got arterial problems or peripheral arterial disease, it's called, that usually will give people pain when they're walking. So you're fine when you're at rest, and then you start walking, your muscles want more oxygen, but you can't get that because of the narrowing in the arteries, it's blocked it. So you get cramps in your legs after walking a distance. Stop, and the pain goes away. So that's coordination. So the other one where you might get aching legs or swelling, that would be if you've got Barrett's strains or idiopathic spondylosis, so you've got problems with the drainage out of the legs. And that's more likely to give you the aching, particularly at the end of the day when you've been standing all day. So that's very separate, that's a different type of symptom.
Are you often asked about these devices?
In my vascular electing people with claudication with varicose veins, that's very much the bread and butter of what we do. Commonly patients will say, what do you think? Did it help? Should I buy one? And so my answer to that is that as a doctor I follow the NICE guidelines, but it's not on the NICE guidelines to recommend. So just because you're getting pain when you're walking or pain when you're standing, it could be so many different things. It could be your joints, it could be your veins, it could be your arteries, and actually you need to get someone to have a look at you to tell you what's causing it. Because if it's because of varicose veins, my advice would be very different to the advice of someone with claudication.
Okay. These devices say, and I'm going to quote from the NICE website here, that they, quote, deliver electrical impulses to the body through electrodes, stimulating nerves to contract target muscle groups. That is, quote, clinically proven to boost circulation in the next 10 minutes. Mixed studies in this site. One reports that the device does significantly increase arterial and venous blood flow during use, and another says that a combination of the device and a supervised exercise program significantly improve performance. What do you make of these two?
I've looked at the trials, looked at the evidence, and the evidence so far has been a very small trial, so it's going to have 20 to 40 people, be enough on a level of evidence to convince most clinicians on a scientific basis. The question I'd have about the one that improved the blood flow is, was that maintained? Was that blood flow increased when they weren't using the equipment, or how long after using it? So there's still opens up a lot of questions to answer from that data. There was a trial at the end of last year with 200, and the largest trial reported at the end of 2023. And that last trial didn't support it above the standard treatment for supervised exercise. It did have a caveat to it that in mild cases of claudication it may be helpful, may increase your walking distance. So just because you don't understand how something works, it doesn't mean to say I wouldn't recommend it. And if you've got £200 and you want to try something, then try it, and it may work for you. I took it to your poll as colleagues, and some people say give it a go, and some people don't.
So in light of all that then, for someone who's tired, aching legs, or slowly eating, are these circulation boosters the best things in sliced bread? Are they best things, or are they marketing themselves?
I don't think I'd put them in the sliced bread category, but I don't think I'd go as far as to put them in the other category, because I think that they are interesting, and we need more evidence, we need to have more knowledge about them. I'd be open to hearing more about them and understanding more, and larger studies or further work from the studies from last year. If they work for you, that's brilliant. But if you haven't got £200, would I recommend it? On the basis of the evidence, I think we'd have to be really cautious. Vascular surgery in particular is so evidence driven, so we can tell you percentages of likelihood of complications, at what point you have your aneurysm treated. We've had so many large studies to give us that level of evidence, and that evidence isn't here for this product. I know that it's been recommended, you can see on the website, by some highly respected vascular surgeons, but it's still in that process of undergoing the assessment as to whether it has its place amongst our area of things that we offer patients. And I'm very aware that the majority of patients who come to my clinic with these sorts of problems are retired people who probably don't have this sort of money.
Who should be careful about using these devices?
If you're pregnant, you shouldn't. And if you've got a pacemaker or an implantable cardiac device defibrillator, if you are suspected to have a deep vein thrombosis or being treated for an acute deep vein thrombosis, then you shouldn't. And they state that on their website, and very clearly understand why those category of patients shouldn't try this machine.
And finally, Jim, what would be sliced bread then to help people like listener Rick, people with the conditions that these devices say they can help?
I think getting a diagnosis, seeing someone, and to know what the problem is. The mainstay for someone with arterial problems would be the medication, aspirin, controlling blood pressure, needs to be exercise. So walking at least 2 hours every week for about 3 months. What you're trying to do is build up what we call nature's own bypasses, so the stimulation of the muscles lacking oxygen makes new vessels form around the blood vessel. If it's venous disease, then losing weight, stopping smoking, all these sort of things, and wearing some compression socks to continue to measure, putting your legs up at the end of the day.
Thanks, Jenny. Love to speak to you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, bye.
Right, time to give listeners Patrick and Rick a call to see what they think of all this. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
You two asked me to investigate different types of electrotherapy products. Patrick, you asked about TENS machines, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. That's the key there. These electric currents are used to stimulate your nerves. Rick
you asked about circulation boosters. Now, they are not devices, they're EMS devices, EMS, or electrical muscle stimulation. So they are all about activating your muscles. That's the something. To try to trip us up, though, some circulation boosters will heads alongside their heads, so they can come with an electrode back stimulate the nerves. Let's do TENS first then, shall we, Patrick? Yeah. You said your partner uses this for her bad back. What did you say that it feels like, and does she find it helpful?
Yeah, the TENS uses quite a lot of time wearing it around the house, and it helps her. So that's what she's using for. But my question, does it burn or does it have something more back?
So the professor that I spoke to has studied TENS machines all his life. So he of course has got a lot of electrically stimulated skin in the game. He acknowledges that the NHS don't fund these and that they are not on the list of recommendations from the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence. But he says that that is because until recently no one looked at the data as a whole. He and his colleagues have done exactly that. They found that TENS has a 20% reduction in pain compared to a placebo.
Interesting. Do they work for everyone?
I think the key to this is that pain is very individual. How we feel it, where we feel it, is different by different people. Similarly, TENS machines work for some people, but not for others, because some people don't like it.
So, if they work for these individuals, what's the rating would I be using them for, and are they pretty great?
I was told you can use it as little or as often as you like. The key thing is that it's not going to cure the pain. It doesn't treat the cause. It's for alleviating the pain in the moment.
It's incredibly helpful. It gives me some really good new information there. Encouragement to carry on. And you know, another one, so I thought, let me get your own thing in my head. So that's really, really pleasure.
So, Vic, you asked me about circulation boosters, as did lots of listeners actually. So these are products that claim to be able to help with a whole range of issues that are caused by, quote, poor circulation. Now, when I spoke to a vascular surgeon about these devices, he told me that poor circulation is a very wide term that covers a range of different specific conditions that she advises are treated differently. So I think that's an initial challenge. You know, some problems can be through your arteries, the way they take blood from your heart down to your legs. Some of those can be treated differently to problems with your veins, bringing blood back up from your legs to the heart.
Yeah, my problem is that I have cortisone in my lower leg, and currently there is very little that it would appear that can be done about other than walk and get exercise.
A study at the Edinburgh Pharmaceutical Institute with 200 participants did find a statistically significant decrease in using the devices above and beyond standard treatment, which, as you say, is exercise. However, it did say that in mild cases of claudication, one of these devices may be helpful and could increase walking distance.
Right.
In 2021, the Advertising Standards Authority banned an advert for Revitus, which is one of the leading brands. They said that the patient was very poor later.
Fisher, German right. Northwest, south or southeast, 4 to 6. Occasionally 7 later in Fisher. That's gale 8 later in northwest Fisher. Rain later, good, occasionally poor later. Humber 10 stroke of white. Variable 2 to 4, we're going south or southwest 3 to 5. Occasionally 6 later in Humber. Occasional rain, fog patches later. Moderate or good, occasionally very poor later. Portland, Plymouth, Biscay. Variable 2 to 4 in southeast Biscay, otherwise southerly or southwesterly 3 to 5, occasionally 6 at first. Occasional rain, fog patches developing, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Fitzroy, Seoul. South or southwest 4 to 6, rain or showers, fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Lundy, Fastnet, Irish Sea. South or southeast, veering southwest later 4 to 6. Occasional rain, fog patches, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Shannon, Rockall. south or southwest 4 to 6. Occasionally 7 later at gale 8 later. Showers good, occasionally poor. Malin, Hebrides favourable. Southeast 6 to gale 8. Steering south or southwest 4 to 6. Occasionally 7 in Bailey. Rain or showers. Moderate or good, occasionally poor. Fair Isle, Faroes, southeast Iceland. Southeasterly but becoming cyclonic for a time in west southeast Iceland 6 to gale 8. Steering southerly 4 to 6 later. Showers, rain later. Fog patches later in east Fair Isle. Moderate or good, occasionally very poor later. And that's the city forecast. Now for more general forecasts, we're joined by Elizabeth Ritz.
Sunshine today. I know you will get cloud overnight tonight, rain as well. That southwesterly wind. The rain becoming patchier in the west later on through the night. There'll be some mist and some fog, but it's safe and hills. With southwesterly wind will continue. The rain could turn quite intense for central southern England, the southeast England, and East Anglia as we head through the early hours. So kind of stormy start here tomorrow morning, heavy rain as well tonight. But it is milder tonight, lows of around 49 degrees across Scotland, Northern Ireland, and northern England. 8 to 11 across Wales and the west of England. And then tomorrow, that early rain across some of the eastern areas of England, clear away. It will turn brighter by night tonight. Dry start elsewhere, but always the risk of cloud around mid-morning north and west. But a lot of bright spells around tomorrow. Watch out for showers in the Midlands, northern England through the afternoon. Okay, showers could be heavy and thundering. In western Scotland and Northern Ireland, despite a bright start, we will see clouds thicker showers into the afternoon. We'll be feeling warmer again tomorrow with a southwesterly wind blowing. Highs of 10 to 14 Celsius in Northern Ireland and Scotland, 12 to 15 across much of England and Wales, and maybe 16 to 17.
Elizabeth, thank you very much. The 6 o'clock news is coming up. Before that, let's find out who will be with Laura Byrne tomorrow morning.
My category this week is the theatre director James Stevens, who came down after a childhood accident.
The back of the school, the sister, that horrible thing where you have to sit and they put their ear to you and walk down the line. And when it came to me, she looked at me and went, oh, they walk over and not me. So I went up to the sister and said, look, can I still be in a choir as long as I don't make a sound? I can lip sync all the words.
James Stevens is My Castaway on Gothic Music. Tomorrow morning at 11:15. BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Lisa Costello. Good evening. Vaughan Gething is set to become the first Minister of Wales and the first black leader of a European nation after winning the contest to lead the Welsh Labour Party. In this bulletin, we'll examine his priorities in government and assess the wider significance of British politics. The brother of Princess Diana, Earl Spencer, has told the BBC that the press intrusion suffered by his sister was worse than the online scrutiny facing Catholic Princess of Wales. Computer problems have disrupted home deliveries by 2 of the UK's biggest supermarkets. And in sport, misery for Wales in the Six Nations and joy for Coventry City in the FA Cup. Vaughan Gething has won the contest to succeed Mark Draper as leader of the Welsh Labour Party. He becomes the first Minister of Wales in the next few days. Mr Gething beats his open rival, the Education Minister Jeremy Miles, with 52% of the vote of party members. His win means that for the first time since devolution was introduced, no part of the UK will be led by a white man. The result was announced at an event in Cardiff. Our Wales correspondent Howard Griffith is there and sent this report.
In the 2-horse race that took 3 months to complete, Vaughan Gething, in the end, won by a slender majority of votes by Welsh Labour members. Having served as both Labour's Health Minister and Economy Minister in Wales, Mr. Gethin has been at the centre of government here for a decade. What is the focus of the show today?
Turn a page in the book of our nation's history. A history that we write together. Not just because I have the honour of becoming the first black leader in any because the generational dial has jumped to. But I want us to use this moment as a starting point to a more confident march into the future.
The next few weeks and months will bring plenty of challenges, with mass job losses looming at the Tata Steelworks in Port Talbot, and the prospect of more farmers protesting at the Senate steps. There will also be rifts to heal within Labour. Some have questioned Mr. Gethin's acceptance of a £200,000 donation.
Exercise with nearly 1 billion people eligible to vote. The vote will take place in 7 phases over several weeks, with the results announced in early June. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and his party, the BJP, is looking to win a 3rd term in office. Our South Asia correspondent Samira Hussain reports from Delhi.
Organising an election for the world's most populous country is a massive undertaking. It will take 6 weeks for India's 968 million eligible voters to cast their ballots. Polling is being divided into 7 phases, with the results expected on the 4th of June. The country's main opposition party, the Congress led by Rahul Gandhi, is looking to unseat the incumbent BJP. It has created an alliance with more than 24 parties to counter Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his ruling Hindu Nationalist Party, but has so far been unable to gain much traction. Today's announcement means negotiations on a possible trade deal between the UK and India have been put on hold and will likely resume when the new government takes office.
Wales have come bottom of rugby in Six Nations after defeat to Italy, and Coventry are through to a first FA Cup semi-final since 1997.
Yes, final day off in Six Nations. Either Ireland or England will claim the title. Ireland need to avoid defeat after Scotland to ensure back-to-back championships into the second half, and Ireland lead by 10 points. Big enough to think that for Ireland means England could win the Six Nations a victory away to France. Regardless of their result, Birmingham goes for success. He already knows what the squad needs to work on.
They already understand that 4 games in now to a new team, developing a new team, a new way of playing, new behaviours that they're going to be trademark for this team.
And where Wales are remain built into the 24-21 by Italy in Cardiff. That's Italy's most successful Six Nations. Yes, second quarter-final of the day is at the Etihad. That's Manchester City versus Newcastle United. It's being watched by Gary Fleet.
And it's Manchester City 2, Newcastle United 0, and there was an inevitability in the 13th minute when Bernardo Silva burst into the box in his sky blue shirt. True, his shot took a fortunate deflection off Dan Burn and helped it loop over the goalkeeper, but it merely confirmed the dominance of the home side. 17 minutes later, Silva made it 2, another shot deflected, this time off Sven Botman, and in truth, the 8,000 travelling Newcastle fans have had little to cheer. The home was Manchester City 2, Newcastle United 0.
Gary, thank you. Earlier champions like Coventry City reached their first FA Cup semi-final since 1987. Thanks to a 3-2 win away at Wolves. 2 stoppage time goals turned the game on its head and sent the Sky Blues to Wembley. It's their manager Mark.
Some good teams at our level, they're competing really good opponents, and they're a giant. Put it forward, get it over the line, to Wembley again, 4 times since I've been at the club.
In the Premier League right now, Fulham are at home to Tottenham. Fulham currently lead by a goal to earlier. Luton rescued a late point with a 1-1 draw at home to relegation rivals Nottingham Forest. Burnley picked up a rare win. They were 2-1 winners against Brentford, while Celtic have returned to the top of the Scottish Premiership.
Gary Stevenson, here to lift the lid on the ways and means of the wheelers and dealers, risk takers and money makers in the City of London, as revealed in his memoir, The Trading Game. Music in the studio comes from Cathy and Blonde Tea, my co-host today, Felicia. Who have you got?
Well, I'm delighted to have you and the former Paralympian turned presenter who explored the South African town of Orania in your documentary. Orania sounds like a magical kingdom. In fact, it's a real town funded by private supporters and volunteers, where local dads are
the Sunday church service there.
Right. Further anyway, let's start. Play this short. Yes, you. Your character's all very good. So, anyway, we'll start with the award-winning actor Johnny Lee Miller, whose career on stage, screen, London, New York, Hollywood has seen him playing a variety of exciting characters, including Lord Byron, Frankenstein, Ex-Monster, Sick Boy, Trainspotting, and John Major in The Crown. Johnny had a recent success on stage in the album Juliet Islington, a new play, A Mirror. Might have seen it before, but never mind, because the production has now transferred to Carpenter. Right, cool. So, guys, sort of a dark comedy, but looking at quite serious issues. So, quite a few tricks through the theatre up its sleeve.
Yeah, so the audience is, as you come, you're invited to a wedding.
Yeah.
You attend a wedding of Layla and Joel, and I'm the registrar of the wedding, and it soon becomes apparent that we have some members of the audience we're trying to get rid of, and I am for the authorities. So it's loosely based on that experience, but yeah, it's going on all over the world.
So you're no stranger to the stage, but a lot of people know you from films. I suppose being in Trainspotting, was that the big breakthrough in your career?
Oh yeah.
But you got that on a recommendation.
Kind of. Well, I got the audition on a recommendation. Yeah. Straight up the audition. Straight up the plane.
So Ewan McGregor.
Yeah, you're a friend. So yeah,
you're a friend. He said, well, you could do this. Well, I was going to say, which do you think most represents you, Boy or John Major? Those two. The range.
Thank you very much.
Or is anybody else in your team?
When you're reading those out together, I did giggle. So that's pretty much me. I go from Sick Boy to John Major on a daily basis.
So for Sick Boy, you had to be started in a cast as a placement.
Yeah, I was the only one.
Yeah. So was that accompanying your facility for accents, or did you really have to go live in Glasgow together for set in Edinburgh?
And shot in Glasgow, and I just pretended I was Scottish from day one.
Yeah.
And we'd go out on the town and stuff, and I figured if I could get away with it up in Glasgow,
yeah,
I could get away with it anywhere.
Yeah.
And then
how did that go?
It went very well.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah. They'll ask you which football team you support. You've got to have a
Yeah.
good eye.
So yeah, I actually looked at the whole thing, and then when we finished shooting the last day, we started talking like this.
I'm putting on a thing.
Yeah. Hello. You were there, Derek, mate.
Look, so we're talking about Scotland. Stuff like in London. Yeah. How's that go? How do you like it?
I absolutely love it. Yeah. I live in New York. I went there to work, initially, to the West Coast, and then to the East Coast. I just love it.
Yeah. People may know about you when you're not acting. You're a volunteer partner. Was that inspired by big tragic events, or just the sort of thing you wanted to help out?
Yeah, the thing I wanted to help out. Yeah, I know someone I live on. Yeah. This comes from fire station. I've always wanted to be a fireman.
Yeah.
I've had that. Always had that in like, what if?
And your dream is to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with having to be an actor in Hollywood and New York and West End of London.
Life takes you one way. So the great thing about the volunteer service is you do that. You don't give up your job, and they take in their 50s like this.
Yeah. But you do a lot of you're a very physical kind of guy. You've got sports.
Yeah.
Sort of Thai boxing as well.
Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Professional fight in New York.
So I think you won. Yeah, so you got a 100% record.
Thank you,
but you run marathons as well. So you always want to sort of set yourself and challenge yourself.
Yeah, I try to fight the demons in my head.
Yeah.
Pretty much, that's,
With Mr. Fagan at the moment, is this going to be the beginning of another further number of performances on the London stage, or back to America?
Well,
TV and movies? Well, it's a limited run. I mean, I haven't, you know, I don't work a lot. I kind of really like, you know, the work doesn't roll in. Let's get that.
Well, you've got a long list of things you've done.
I know, but that's 40 years of stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, but you know, it's a limited run, and I need to get home to Jack.
Okay. All right. And to put flowers out. So, anyway, Amira is at London Velvet Theatre at the moment, and until the 20th of April. So it's got people are not so long if they want to watch these actions. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Johnny Lee Miller. Got some music now from the soul singer, originally from Wales, then Sheffield, who's just about to release her second album, Honestly. Kat, you've featured on Loose Ends before, but that was in 2021 with Restricted by COVID. You sent a track in, so it's good to see you in person. Then you did a song called Need a New Way to Say I Love You. Today it's time we said goodbye. The direction of travel doesn't sound very happy on that.
Yeah, I know.
What is this about? What are you trying to
For at least 2/3 of the document, people are really nice to your face, but as you get deeper in, you describe them as living in a bit of a bubble. What did you mean by that?
I think we were trying to recreate South Africa of the apartheid times, you know, and I think it's really significant the fact that Irania came to the in 1990. I think it's the year after apartheid ended in South Africa. And its biggest influx, I think, around 1994 when Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa. And I feel people in Iran felt they lost it all. You know, I think that's what racism is about. That's what trying to create your own monopoly is to give yourself power. And they felt that power was gone, and they felt afraid of what was going on. And Iranian was created to try and alleviate and regain that power. Because fighting about the history. These monocultures, within countries, there are areas where there are monocultures where they're fighting and things like that. So when you have the history of the president in that country setting up a town just basically about monoculture, it's worrying. You don't know what to trust. What's there then?
I found myself getting completely into it when I was watching the documentary because it's like watching a thriller. There are one of them occurs at the Sunday church service, which is, to my mind at least, a place of peace and friendship. What happened to you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it all started the night before. The night before, I was at in Iran, where they were launching their own cults because they want to become their own country. And I went there and I think for and people were constantly trying to make out and I had a little bit of a discussion with the town council there about that last map, and it just came from nowhere. It was completely left field. He attacked me and talked about how he felt that black people responded to the question and they were civilized way to get other town. And that went pear shaped, and after that they kind of started to restrict my access to what had a meeting to the church the next day to really delve into the morals and the moral standing of it. And I went in to go, and I was sort of escorted out after I'd been told it was okay to leave this guy. We were going to have an interview outside. I was escorted out by some guys who had guns, and they took me out of church with them and basically said to me, no more interviews and go on your way.
It says something about Irania that its biggest church has bouncers with guns.
I know it's nuts. It's not the sort of church that I was expecting to go to.
You did get a chance to talk to some of the young people of Irania. Some of whom seem very happy there, many of whom seem activist and ambitious and open-minded enough to be able to speak with you quite freely. Did you see any signs of hope?
I love the kids, I think the kids
to open this, children open this, you know, and they take on all what we do. And they were good children. You know, I went in and then great conversations, and it's fun, but you can see there were definite gaps. You know, one of the kids who was house the next son of one of them. Nelson Mandela. That's problematic.
Well, it's a festival. Thank you, and Whites Only, Addy's Extremist Adventure, is on Channel 4 at 10 p.m. on Monday.
Thank you very much, Wade. Some more music out from the young singer-songwriter from South East London. It's a film known to the world of music as Long Tink, who's the building a following on the live music scene. He's graduated from the British Academy. You must have known from an early age music was what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so I actually started out in a rock band, the band before in primary school, which was great. Sort of like screaming and shouting, class was so amazing. And then I sort of delved into producing my own music, and this is where I am now.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at school, is it all music? Do you have to do sort of trigonometry and double physics in your spare time?
Okay, what, at British school?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went there for year 10, so that was still good.
Thank you very much, Long Tink. Wandering is available now on all streaming platforms. You can have a sneak preview of an unreleased Long Tink track in Disco Tears. That's on our website now. It's available. It's going to be available the 1st of June. Check the website, our website, and longtinksocial.org. Coming in. So we come now to Gary Stevens, who was born in Ilford in East London, then barely out of his teens, made it big in Canary Wharf, then Varsity Station in London. Depending on how you measure it, either a couple of kilometres from Ilford or a million miles away. Trading on the money markets in Citibank after a few years, Gary earned enough and had enough to want to live, but leaving the living lifestyle was by no means easy, as you explain in your book, The Trading Game, a confession. So what are you confessing?
Yeah, how I went from by betting on the flat first.
Yeah. I mean, you got up to a great start when you got to Citibank, but before then, you worked out right. You could go get degrees when you're LSE. Your first thought was to sit at the front of the class and concentrate and make sure you got the best exam results, which you did.
Yeah, I was never a big study. You know, I shared the station with my brother. My friend at the desk. There wasn't any way to study. Very good.
Yeah.
And I rely on the
study at home. But I think if you go to every class, go to every lecture, understand everything everyone says, probably will work. And,
So that was your priority when, but it wasn't to get you everywhere.
well, I think that's the big thing that really did the electric council because I was kind of told when I was also you work hard, you study hard, get good grades, you get a good job. And I was doing that. I was getting some of the best grades in the school. Coming in beginning of second year is mad. Suddenly people start thinking. The lecturers were there, and I was going in as echo. Everyone suddenly starts teaching 3-letter terms. I had work in Mount Pleasant, 35 years, 20 grand a year. Early in the morning, late at night, every day, 20 grand a year. 20 grand a year. 40 grand. And you think about the training that. But then the next thing you think of, finally, well, so I think a big part of the story is split between, feeling in some part of yourself that you feel right.
It's a fascinating book, a shocking book in many ways. You confirm what was the worst thing you could ever say about the Matrix process, and you will bet you get this worldwide crash. I hope you and others do something like that. But now you have a YouTube site where you explain economics of what's power and study that. And you address the issue that the last one you did was, well, the taxation is as high as it's ever been, and yet the money available to various things, whether it's the health service, whether it's the armed forces, whether it's anything, is the lowest it's ever been. And you explain nobody's got any money anymore, including the government.
There's two big elements. One is that first because it's something else you have a risk. And the other is I lose the mindset and it's like I start feeling sick. Because it's stuff that you want to know what's happening. Go on, and down the line. And now I start to feel really what's happening? My generation is 20. The generation is territory now. Then we have 2011 stop the debt. So we found government. I'm surrounded by it. And that's when you start realizing the problem. And then I go through that and I realize we need to debate. One thing I would like to say, I think a lot of people might really attack on the bank.
Well, there is one interpretation that you might get on every page.
And I've got the problem. And government, charity, they just come and right? Yeah. This to me is a story about what happens when me as a young man came to this my great grandfather, but also what happens when society as a whole.
So you've got some solutions to this, and so you need now to go into politics.
I'm in politics.
Yeah. No, I mean you've got to be chancellor of the exchequer or something, with your hands on the research. It might take you a time, but listen, well, it'll take you about 18 months the way you normally operate.
And maybe I want to do educate people and let themselves conduct themselves. The only way to do politics.
All right, well, on that happy note, I'll just say the trading game is out now, but tell us if we're handling. I can't.
There's a film. Well, I think
we understand very, very simple. But anyway, that's the loose ends tied up this week. You just missed the program. If you want to hear it again, you can find it dozens of weeks in the Horn of Plenty that leads south into the recent issue with the media Labibont and Alistair Boatman. This week's guests are Gary Stevens, Kimberly Chambers and Johnny D. Miller, Candy and Blonting, Matita and Alec and Lepita. Today's producer is Claire Barkley and the studio managers are Donald McDonald and Emma Hull. Next week, my guests will be Gemma Whelan and Mark Watson. Now, this week brought the sad news of the death of the multi-talented, multi-instrumentalist singer, songwriter Charles Wallinger, who, as it happens, was a friend of mine. He has many successes with his band, world-class English songwriting in general, but he's taken something back by Robbie Williams, taking one of his songs to the top of the charts. So, to end loose ends today, here is the committed Carl himself. He's the one singing and playing He's the One, and it comes from his appearance on this program in 2020.
She was me. We were
Loose Ends was presented by Clive Anderson. And if you'd like to listen again to any of the recent music performances on the show, just head to the Loose Ends website, to Loose Ends on BBC Sounds. Coming up after the news is currently the Levelling Up Secretary. It's also the ultimate political survivor. The profile of Michael Gove in a couple of minutes.
Since Sudan gained independence in 1956, it's hardly known a day of peace. After decades of conflict, South Sudan became an independent state in 2011. The latest Sudanese war broke out last April between two rival factions of a military government. Many thousands have been killed, and the country is suffering one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. So why aren't we hearing more about it? I'm James Cocknell, the BBC's former Sudan correspondent, and I'll be speaking to historians, residents and politicians to find out more. The war the world forgot. This Friday morning at 11 on BBC Sounds and Radio 4. BBC News at 7 o'clock. Sainsbury's says its online ordering system and in-store payments are working again after a technical problem related to a software update caused the cancellation of most of today's grocery deliveries. Customers were told the chain was unable to contact them and they would have to redo their orders.
Early age, his parents scrimping and saving, going without holidays and other luxuries to try to afford the fees to send him to private school age 11. Aberdeen's Robert Gordon's College, where vast sporting seemed to excel. Took to it like a fish to water.
He took an encyclopedia to school with him. His parents said that he would always finish his work ahead of the other pupils in the class. What he did, instead of bunking off or passing notes as most people would tend to do, he immediately opened his encyclopedia to where he last left off.
Sounds right, Scott. I used to be an avid collector of a plot book called All About Science. Every week, a new section of an A to Z of the scientific curriculum would come out. I don't think that anyone would describe that as an uber cool way to spend your time. No. There was an early interest in politics, Gove campaigning for the Labour Party and his teams, according to a report in the Daily Telegraph. And big on religion too, his parents said.
I think they thought he might go into the ministry, into the Church of Scotland, because their local church, which is just round the corner from their house, Michael attended every Sunday with his mum and gave reading and seemed to have that pastoral touch.
Instead, he took the academic route, went to study
at night. Next morning, it was all been done and properly done. And it was only when I worked with other ministers that I realised that there were some sort of private officers who were having to chase the things weeks and weeks later.
Hard working but charming too.
He was the politest man you will ever meet. No one says please or thank you as much as Michael Gove. He was unfailingly polite and faithful to everyone in his leadership team. Books for birthdays, Christmas. Other politicians will raise their voice or use their temper. That just wasn't the way Michael Gove operated.
No, Gove's approach was methodical, data and analysis. He brought in experts, yes, experts, to examine the evidence and help him come up with solutions to what he perceived to be the problems with the way schools had been run in the past. He wanted radical changes to the curriculum, was a proponent of academies and free schools, giving parents and communities power to make their own decisions. But there was a problem he hadn't counted on, says Katie Balls.
I think the education establishment looked at this and felt there was a lot of change. Ultimately, he found himself on the wrong end of many teachers.
The Education Secretary Michael Gove says he has no intention of slowing the pace and scale of his school reforms. He was speaking after the National Association of Head Teachers passed a vote of no confidence in some government education policy.
Nearer to the 2015 election, Michael Gove was actually moved out of the role. Gove had become too unpopular, and the two had too great an electoral risk.
He was demoted to chief whip, and he bounced back after the 2015 general election, Cameron making him Justice Secretary, only to fall out again just months later over the EU referendum. Gove, to Cameron's dismay, suddenly boldly, co-chairing the entire campaign with their Labour MP and now crossbench peer, Lisa Stewart.
Boris and I would do the public-facing activities, and Michael and a team of his advisors would work through
to the policy things.
Can we do it? I think we can. I think that they're rattled on the Remain side of the campaign.
Michael was the one that did the thinking. He was quite content playing a more certain Republican background role.
Yes, very much so.
The Gove, or the Gover, as Johnson calls him, the Baton Rouge deacon, grafter, galvan, as he goes around.
He takes people with him. He inspires enormous loyalty amongst those who work with him. And it's not a party political loyalty, it is an intellectual loyalty.
Yet, when it came to the subsequent leadership battle against David Cameron, Exeter state right and Cruz as PM, disloyalty became the word associated with Michael Gove. Former Today programme presenter John Humphries again.
I do remember the morning when Boris Johnson was due to announce.
Does not make a secret of the fact that he's kicked back at some good time. It's definitely not just opera, definitely.
Gove partial to a bit of Nirvana, Netflix, Taylor Swift music, to those who know him well, even recently suggesting, half jokingly I assume, that he might consider going on Celebrity MasterChef.
He's not the cook. He can make tasty food, but let's just say there's a lot of help from Mr. Waitrose.
Woolgate, nice thing. To Zoe Sprinkle.
We were thinking of the fake chef, and it was both boring and charming. It took forever to make this. You know, he really did not rush himself. He thought of every possible combination. And, you know, of course, he didn't seem like he knew what he was doing, but of course he did.
So what next for Michael Gove? Unlike some of his Conservative colleagues, he isn't planning on stepping down at the next general election. Indeed, the Spectator's Katie Ball thinks if successfully re-elected, Gove, the great survivor, just like he did in the Vote Leave campaign, could become key to shaping the Conservative Party's future.
Would he go for the leadership again? I think those around him would say that it's very unlikely, but like they've had to rule out these things before and gone for it. But I think even without a leadership bid, he will want to play a role in terms of the direction the party takes after the election. So if you're thinking about that battle for ideas and those on the right who are gearing up to move their party in a certain direction, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say that Michael Gove is there making a different type of argument.
Profile will be presented by Mark Coles, the producer is Charlotte McDonald.
On BBC iPlayer,
This story that I'd never heard before.
real people, unbelievable stories, including another body.
Deepfake videos can make someone appear as though they're saying or doing something that they're not.
There is no woman in the world safe from this technology.
Beyond utopia, there is no freedom of religion, no freedom of thought, no freedom of press in North Korea. And revenge against the Nazi killer.
They all believed Dad was responsible for taking out a Nazi fugitive living in Australia.
Storyville. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
Now Radio 4, it's time for some Infinite Monkey Business.
Hello, I'm Brian Cox.
I'm Robin Ince, and this is the Infinite Monkey Kennel, or basket, or possibly Infinite Monkey Cardinal Box. Because today we are pitting two of the nation's favourite pets together in the biggest battle between species ever broadcast on Radio 4 on Saturday night.
Other with me on Wednesday.
Order of Kings on Wednesday afternoon. It might also be on Mondays actually as well.
Yeah, you might be listening on BBC Sounds as well, or wherever you get your
Oh, wherever. This is the problem with doing big Saturday night World of Sport, Dickie Davis, giant haystack style intros. People they don't receive the media like they used to, do they? Who remembers Dickie Davis? That Davis. We got to Dickie Davis much faster than normal, didn't we? Brian, of course, has a slight Dickie Davis thing because he actually has some of his hair dyed grey, so you think he's a real boy. Bring it back. So, you marvelled at bats versus flies. You gasped at wasps versus bees. Now it is the ultimate challenge. It is cats versus dogs. In the red corner, we have a Dachshund. In the blue corner, we were meant to have a Russian blue-haired cat. It's just wandered off because he's wandered off probably for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, it's gone on for long enough that eventually the owner, in tears, goes around all the neighbouring television poles and pops up little lost cat images all over it, weeping. And then after about 4 weeks, he just comes back nonchalantly through the cat flap and goes, yeah, I've just been out. What of it? Give me a gourmet meal. And I might purr before I dig my claws in really unnecessarily tightly. It's the best name ever for a cat. And actually, I know it's the best name ever for a cat because when I took it to the vet for the first time, took her actually to the vet for the first time, it got a big laugh in the waiting room. You know, what's name the cat? Massive laugh. But the receptionist just wrote down on her computer, meow, right? Just like her surname. So when I went into the actual vet and the vet got the cat details on his computer, I could tell he was thinking, meow, what an original. So that was disappointing, but yeah, that's why. And this is our panel. So we need now to talk about, well, really, all of you to explain your interest, why you are supporting the animals that you are. Well, let's start with you, Jess, right? So you are fighting on Team Cat. Let's just find out how many people in the audience are on Team Cat. And how many on Team Dog? Please give me a lower voice there. Lower voice. That's the thing, which is, I think, as someone who's spent a lot of time going on about being a cat man, is that it's seen by some people, the dog people, as a little bit not right for a man to be obsessed with cats, which I think is a very questionable idea in 2024. Oh, I feel, no, you're clickbaiting the issue there. That's making everyone seem like a bigot now just because they've got a dog. Oh, you are a bigot, Robin. And also, tell you what, my long-haired accent Maximilian's going to take you down.
It's because we've set this sign show up in an adversarial manner, as is often the want of broadcasters. And it's nonsense. So I'm going to stop it now. There we go. I'm going to that's a sensible question. We want to know. Also, I just like the way Jess said, I'm a cat man, which actually sounded more like you were kind of a jazz musician in the 1950s. I know he's a superhero. Yeah, superhero in Batman, but not woman. Not Catwoman, Catman. Which wouldn't work, because Batman would think, well, no, I'm Batman. So you have to be Catwoman. This is ridiculous.
I'm confused.
Yeah, so am I. Why are you a cat woman?
Well, listen, I spend my day job working with both cats and dogs, and I love them both. But I feel like the cats really have to earn that love. You know, with dogs, they love everyone, don't they? You've got to treat them, they come to you, but with cats, you really have to do something special to earn that love. They're not just going to come to anyone, you know. They decide, you're for me or you're not. So, I'm Team Cat, simply because I think it makes people special.
Right, let's move over to Ben, Team Dog. I agree with everything Jess said. That's about Team Dog. I've got enough complex relationships in my life that impress a bloody cat. If I feed you, give you a home, I'm not in some sort of abusive thing with my cats and dogs at home, but if it takes more than that for them to love me, it's one fewer cat, one more dog. That's because a friend of mine, and I never thought this before, how the relationship is so opposite. Exactly what you were saying there. So the dog says, yeah, I love you. It's nice to be loved. And the cat says, well, you'll have to earn my respect.
I've got cats, and I hope they're not going to be listening to this, because I think they know more than they let on. But dogs are a lot less worrying than cats, aren't they? You know where your dogs are, and you walk in the house, and they're enthusiastic, and they love you, and they jump up, and they see you. But as you say, cats, you might not see for months on end. So yeah, I think dogs are a lot less worrying.
But the problem is, right, that essentially dogs, and you're right, it's a false binary. I quite like dogs. Dogs are fine. They're just not cats. Cats are absolutely brilliant, right? I think the dog people want the cat people to hate dogs. And we don't. So you said that thing about how cats disappear. Dogs are always there. Dogs are in your face. Dogs are like, I love you, I love you, I love you. There should be a restraining order.
Can I ask a science question? I would like to ask Jess, as a vet, what are the, go back to basics, what are the physiological differences between cats and dogs?
Yeah, so they're both part of the order, the Carnivora, and they both essentially a very similar body plan. But cats are perfectly adapted to hunting. They are obligate carnivores, which means they have to be meat, whereas dogs will eat a combination of meat and vegetables, basically whatever they can find lying around. I'm sure if you've got dogs, you know they'll eat just about anything. So cats have this really perfectly adapted body for hunting. They have these incredibly sharp claws, which are protractile, so they can pull them in when they want, but actually most of the time they are in, and they only bring them out when they need them, which means they remain perfectly sharp. They have these incredibly flexible bodies, which means they can jump, climb, and get up trees, jump out of trees. They're brilliant, perfect hunters.
Cats are brilliant hunters. I'm sure they are. Why have they thought, instead of hunting, we will colonise humans and they will feed us? What is it in humans that so responds to cats and dogs that finds them cute? Like, is it to do with the fact that I see a cat, it seems its big eyes and tiny nose to be a sort of very, very pretty version of a Chico? So they're quite recent splits from a tree that we can trace back to about between 45 and 60 million years ago. Do we see a pattern in the animals that domesticated, or is it just down to the ones that we have chosen to domesticate? So Jeff, I mean, when there are certain animals brought in, I imagine every now and again there might be a more eccentric pet that comes across, you know, into your veterinary practice.
There's certainly ones that are not a good idea to have. It sounds like you think one of those is a cat. But I suppose, you know, originally we thought about domesticating things that we could eat, and then cats probably came about because we had these range laws, and that attracted rodents, and that's what brought the cats near to us, and they realised living around humans wasn't so bad. But generally, these days, though, people seem to think that you can domesticate anything, and that really isn't the case. You know, most of the animals that we have really incredible relationships with, cats and dogs, that's been going on for thousands of years. It's not like you can just suddenly take an animal from the wild and take it, and that suddenly becomes what we see as a domestic animal or a pet. It really is only specific animals that I think make good pets.
With some cats and dogs, there's a rise in servals, these beautiful African long-legged cats that are gorgeous with these very dog-like and they're an odd pet. You see occasionally wolves or very recent wolf domesticated species coming these days. Terrible pets. Within the dog and cat groups, there are things that still don't make good pets at all. But in terms of what you can domesticate, not given enough time. I'm going to bring it back to the binary because I think there is fun to be had in the binary, even if it's more real. Cats have actually won, right? And the way we can tell they've won is the internet, because the most viewed thing on the internet by miles and miles and miles is cats, more than porn. And I say that as an avid fan of both. Right? Like, many when you say both again, we need to return into a shaded area in that Venn diagram. Their relative intelligence, capacity, and
I think they're both pretty smart, and I think they just show their intelligence in great different ways. So my cats have bad words. I know that because I know I want to go and go out, I want food, but they're a lot more independent, and I think that they have empathy, but they have it on their own terms. And quite frankly, when they can't be bothered, they can't be bothered. Dogs, I think, are very different because they are there all of the time. I've got 5 dogs, and there's always one at my side. There's always one touching my hand, which just gives me the impression that they want this close relationship. And the cat's like, I want it when I want it, but not so when I don't. There was actually a study that investigated exactly that, where they monitored cats in their home environment, and they monitored how many times the humans, actually it was all women, how many times the women initiated the contact with the cats, and how many times the cats initiated the contact with the women. And they found that if the human initiated the contact with the cat, then...
So we've got 360 at least breeds of dog around the world, and they do everything from transport, such as sledding, to bomb detecting, to therapy. Imagine cats doing any of these things. Trusting a cat with a bomb? No. Absolutely no. Well, it would diffuse it one way or the other. It would, yeah, absolutely. The dogs don't diffuse it, do they? Strictly now, but a cat would do that thing at the edge of the table where it's just... So the dog's a pack animal, it's got some abilities to live in groups, and in terms of understanding you from a social perspective, they're much better reading your face. I'm very dangerously close to agreeing with David a little bit here. It's not that they're aloof, they just can't read you in the same way that dogs do. It's your latest with cats, where they have to hunt as a pack, they live as a pack, they understand their social dynamic. Cats do that, they're semi-solitary, they don't need to look at faces, and they don't have the same range of facial expressions that dogs do. But if you're looking at pure intelligence from hunting, stealthy, sensory base, then cats almost always act like dogs. So it's you're comparing two very different things. As a vet, when you're treating these animals, so dogs and cats, which is the most difficult to deal with?
One of the most difficult things in a veterinary consultation is getting the cat out of the basket. So in that respect, cats are difficult to look at in the first place. And cats are really, really good at hiding if they get monster. Whereas dogs will come in, it's really labouring, it's limping on its legs, and really ham it up. Whereas the cat is great. Comfortable, been hit by a car, broken every bone in its body, laid there, gets goes on.
Another reason it's probably just lying there, it's broken every bone. I have picked up on something. I'm going to have to say this now from a scientific perspective. I do think you two are far more vocal than what we are, Deborah and I am. It's just saying, I think we're more reasonable. And it's scientifically based. Yeah. I have a fear you both have a brain parasite. And Jess is looking suspicious because you've had a problem with toxoplasmosis.
If they have or have not.
So, there is a single-celled protozoa parasite that lives inside rodents, rats, mice, and dogs in the UK. Now, that parasite can only reproduce, weirdly, we don't know why, in the gut of cats. It controls the rodent's brains to the point where they become sexually attracted to the cats and will go and actively seek them out. Yeah. I knew I shouldn't have eaten that leftover meat. So we see that the rodents actively seek out the cats so that this parasite can reproduce inside the cat. However, research has shown, and loads of research in repeated situations has shown, that up to 50% of cat owners have this brain parasite. So, who's got a cat here? Oh, no hand, literally no hands went up there. So what's the test for it? Just fancying cats? Yeah. Or is it more than that? No, it can really, your inhibitions completely diminish. This is me. Yeah, ability to assess risk completely goes. There's quite a whole sort of plethora from certain mental health problems right through to risk detection are associated with the presence or absence of toxoplasmosis in us. So approximately in the UK, they reckon about 51%, very close to 52%. Are infected with this brain parasite because of cats. So no wonder you two are so rapidly obsessed with your cats. It's not your fault. You've just brain control. That's fine. They're basically their zombie. Yeah, those two. Yeah. Whereas we're clearly not. Yeah.
Deborah, you have cats too, right?
I have got cats.
Yeah, I think you might have this parasite.
Now, hold on, can I say, I've never had a rat has never shown any sense of attraction to me whatsoever.
No, but actually recently they've found that this risk-taking behaviour can make you much better.
We went over to look at a bear vegetarian now, and the boss guy was in it, and so he was having a Halloween last night. Because I said, well, really? So I didn't understand what he said, but
This is Michael Pearce, Senior Lecturer in Irish Literature at Queen's University Belfast.
The next day, he's loved by the London working class because he's kind of challenged this stuffy BBC at the time.
The original tapes of that interview have been lost, perhaps because it was the first use of the F word on the BBC. This interview, or rather the idea of this interview, established an image of Brendan Behan in the British literary establishment that would last unchanged until his death 8 years later, and for 60 years since. more drunk than a writer, more an Irish stereotype than a genius.
It was here, in the pubs of Dublin, that his greatest drama, his own life and death, was enacted.
That the evidence for this no longer even exists to refer back to suits that stereotype just fine. It was enough of a cultural touchstone that in 1959, comedian Peter Sellers parodied the whole interviewing character as being.
What can you tell?
I'm not telling you nothing, you smut-faced bastard. I'm not telling you nothing.
Ron McNeil is Brendan Behan's daughter.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it had a tremendous effect, and it was probably the biggest factor in establishing that stereotype of him as the uptight and drunken Irishman.
Janet Behan is Brendan Behan's niece, who would say to me, "Is he really a genius, or is he just a drunk?" In 1959, 3 years after the infamous interview, Behan was in front of the BBC's cameras again, talking to Derek Hart.
Well, first of all, I must congratulate you on the rapturous reception of your play, The Hostage You Had in Paris. Thank you. But according to Derek Time,
Behan still looks the part he's been allocated by the establishment. He's disheveled, dark hair springing out wildly. His crumpled linen shirt and shabby jacket strike a marked contrast with Hart's immaculate suit and coiffed hair.
Excuse me, Jews, you speak excellent English. They do not speak BBC.
But if you listen, the man speaking is nothing like the version that has been set in cultural record.
In fact, worked 7 years in Paris, Mr. Dern, did you not, as a house painter? Well, I was part of a number for several years, and I never house painter for several years anywhere. For some time. I regard house painting, I regard the whole building place as dangerous and positive occupation. I mean, I would walk across Niagara Falls rather than be painter again. You find the French appreciative as a people then? Yes, I like the French, I love the French, and I consider not all of them any more than getting to do it like all the Irish, and that I would like all the English, but most of them, and the working class I found very kind in a peculiarly offhand way. I found the French bourgeoisie, even if you wanted to beg something, well, you would get it quicker from a Frenchman than you would from anybody else, and you wouldn't make a song about it.
It's quite extraordinary, even though he's wearing an old dinner-stained nylon shirt open at the neck and a pair of brakes, and one shoe off and one shoe on. How modern he sounds.
Pat McCabe, an Irish author and one of my literary heroes, who I spoke to about the book.
He's actually being good mannered. He knows he's being patronized. He knows there's not a great deal of respect going on. But, you know, his eyes are blazing with such intelligence that he can't control the number of it.
Behan in 1959 is at the height of his fame and his powers as a writer. But, as he reflects to Hart, it hasn't necessarily made him happy.
Somebody, I was asked one time had success inspired me. I said, no, I was always like this. Change my way of life in that I suppose I go to better beds, but sleep less well.
Behan's intrigue for me is to do with the refusal of his competing legacies to sit comfortably together. I was taken by the complex, intertwined realities of a breathing human being, a self-created myth, and a character imposed on him by the literary establishment. An establishment sometimes unsure whether to condescend, scream, or applaud him. Clearly he enjoyed on some level performing the brassy character he'd become known for. And yet it struck me that the idiosyncrasies only appeared so odd when under studio lighting. To sing and drink and make merry was hardly such strange behaviour, but the continuous bewildered focus upon it by audiences seemed to heighten and dramatise the act, in a way which became myopic, ignorant of the surrounding context. Context up to and including the actual writer performing it, and the world from which he emerged. I wanted to hear about that world, and I wanted to hear about the work and the man behind the image.
Well, now, the purpose of this is to find out what makes Brendan Behan. Not that there are playwriting rules, but it is, you know, there's a video that kickstarts the whole jury of London Irish Theatre.
This guy would nip Jack Kerouac. We, the terror, you know what I mean? He was so out there.
I'll be hearing stories about the man and the writer who left an indelible mark on Irish literature, music, political expression, and working class art history. Who fought for Irish independence, first with violence and later with language. He blazed a trail for queer writing. A man who alcohol destroyed shouldn't have harmed.
Explores what it means to believe in freedom.
Behan was a beaten, but he was an Irishman.
One of the extraordinary things about Brendan Behan is that the vast majority of his most important work was from 5-year frenzy of activity, from 1954 to the end of 1958. I want to find the real Brendan Behan, so I'm going to search for him there, in those years, in that work. So, let's begin.
Kathleen had Kathleen had 2 children that was pregnant with Brendan when Stephen, my grandfather, was put into prison in the Civil War.
Janet again, on Brendan's mother, Kathleen.
So she was unable to work, she was destitute. She always earned her own living up till then, but she had to go and live in the Russell Street slum.
Because it was the troubled times and Dad and always get raw. Stephen.
Kathleen Behan speaking to the BBC in an interview first broadcast in 1971.
Because he'd been in prison, and when he came out of prison, it was hard. He was a political prisoner, and it was hard to get raw.
And we're standing in really what would have been the heart of tenement Dublin, and is at the centre of this story.
Here's historian Donald Fallon talking on Russell Street in Dublin, street where Behan grew up.
So you could have something in the region of 800 people living in 15 homes. Very, very crowded places. In most places I've been to, people have a tendency to talk themselves up, if you will, and to add a few steps to the social ladder. In Dublin, people have a tendency to talk themselves down. I mean, Behan talked about growing up in a tenement, which was true. What he rarely said was that his granny owned the tenements. But Ernie O'Malley, an Irish revolutionary who Brendan had great respect for, he always talked about how in Dublin the layers of class were more than the layers of an onion. Even on a street like this, you could be living in tenements and there were still dividing rings between people. Capitalism. But I also think the kind of dog run that he was writing as a kid is interesting too. And he landed a friend from this street, Teresa Byrne, in trouble when he wrote her Irish language essay for her at school, age 9, and didn't tell her he included a few jokes at the expense of the mums who ran the school. She got in trouble. He wrote an apology in verse. Now this is a 9-year-old, keep that in your mind. I think you're awfully decent not to give my name, but even to your grandma you shouldered all the blame. Oh, what can I do now, love, to restore our happiness? Will I go over to Gill's pub and to your ma confess? Actually, Teresa, I've just got 2 and 6. So will you please stop sulking in the parlour and go with me to the fix? I'll take you to the drummer, the 9-penny cushion seats, and that will leave me with a bob to get you out into the streets. Give this to proper ending. I'll wind it up with yours forever, Brendan.
It's so funny that little poem, isn't it, that Emily wrote for his friend.
When he was 9.5 years of age, his aunt Emily walked in with a handsome little boy by the hand.
Bob Bradshaw was a childhood friend of Behan. Here speaking in an influential film about Behan, Hungry Feeling, released in 1958.
And he was brought in to be educated by us. His father was education, but he educated us. He gave us a lecture show and a lecture on autism. He never got a word in.
As a teenager and a young man, Behan wrote for Radical magazine. Fiercely supported the IRA's campaign for full Irish independence and embraced violence in its pursuit. Is this former VP of Sinn Féin, Michael Tring, in that same film?
So he kept pestering me and persecuting. He wanted to be an action. He was essentially a physical force man. Oh yes, no doubt about it. He wanted to get shooting at the Brits or killing the Brits, one way or another.
Behan served time in multiple British prisons and young offenders institutions, but eventually, after he was freed from Mountjoy Gaol in a political amnesty, left Ireland for Paris in 1948.
Paris, for Behan, is a very important place for him to get to, of course. It's a writer's city.
Deirdre McMahon, producer and Behan scholar. She made an RTÉ documentary about Behan's time in Paris with co-producer Tim Desmond, and has done extensive research into this period.
You also had that very public debate that was going on between two France's intellectuals, Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, around the nature of violence and revolution and what the responsibility of a writer should be. So this was an incredibly exciting time for somebody like Behan. He was asking just these questions. He had been imprisoned for his Republican activity. He was now transitioning from revolutionary to literary career. You know what, he was working out the topics that interested him. Irish is the language that he uses, and perhaps language is sort of a space to try out ideas, to express oneself. But I think also that point of a writer being at odds with mainstream society, I think that comes through in much of his work, but one short poem that he wrote, and it's a poem called Weightless, or Loneliness. The tang of blackberries wet with rain on the hilltop. In the silence of the prison, clear whistle of the train. The happy whisperings of lovers to the lonely one.
Well, I didn't have any. No, I love this. No, I haven't.
Brendan himself, speaking to a Parisian journalist in 1961.
So weirdly, stuck for a place to sleep, like.
Paris was really difficult for him, as it was for many writers at the time. Though some of Juliette Greco said we had no money, but we were free. He was working as a house painter, so yes, he would have been earning some money, but writing wasn't paying. He used to go along looking for bits of food on windowsills in Paris because he said people left things out, perhaps for refrigeration, I don't know. What's really interesting about that, he started Warsaw Boy, which is his autobiographical novel, generally considered his masterpiece. So he's trying to write it in Paris under these conditions. And having nowhere to go, being so weary and so tired, and he just uses the manuscript.
Something striking happens to Ian while he's in Paris, sitting in a Breton cafe. When a woman sees him in the cafe, she asks who he is. He says, "I'm a peintre bâtiment, a house painter." But then Ian is shocked to hear the doorman correct him. Tell this woman that he is not a house painter, he's a writer. So, our story really starts now, 1954. Ian had decided to leave Paris behind and tried for the first time to build a life as a writer in his beloved home city of Dublin.
In spite of the spaciousness of its streets and its appearance of leisure and ease, Dublin in the 1950s was a claustrophobic and constricted place, where everybody knew everybody else, took a great interest in their success or failure, and wished them, on the whole, anything but well.
But Dublin was a very different place to Paris. Here's one of Ian's literary comrades and former housemate, Anthony Cronin. This is from a 1991 BBC documentary he made called Three Irish Writers. Much of it centres on Cronin's own beautiful writing.
Dublin in the 1940s and 50s was an isolated and self-regarding place, largely cut off from the rest of the world by the war and Ireland's neutrality. Though drinking played a very large part in the life of its citizens, its official morality was narrow and puritanical. So when he came back to Dublin from Paris, he began a
John Branigan, Professor of English at University College Dublin. Brendan's life in Dublin is far more comfortable than in Paris. He's making a steady income, writing a column each week for the Irish press. He temporarily abandoned Borstal Boy, focusing his energy instead on a play, The Quair Fellow, which will become a calculated provocation for the literary.
As a singer, in a way, he loved song and he loved singing.
Matty O'Neill, a childhood friend of Brendan, reflects on Ian at this time in the film A Hungry Feeling.
We talk to you about life, about honesty, about people and about humanity and about individuals, and about having the courage to be yourself.
Sheila Bradshaw, another friend of Brendan's, like Matty.
I always felt that he had a sort of euphoria about being free.
Having earned a reputation on the streets and the pubs of Dublin as a singer, a mischievous prankster, and a rambunctious figure, he was well placed to take a swing at the literary establishment. Using spaces they abhorred, talking to people they didn't listen to, and doing things they'd rather not admit people like to do. Ian wanted to draw on this world, and on traditions of music hall and working class theatre, but also on his own life, especially the part of it that most set him apart from more genteel peers.
He was locked up, you may say, from the age of 16 to 24 with only a couple of months.
He spent many years in prison. He spent 3 years in
John Branigan.
Then very shortly
I was not shot at sight. I was surrounded. I was taken into a custody. I was brought to Justice of the Military Tribunal. I was sentenced to 14 years in penal servitude.
When he was brought to trial, there was another young IRA man who had also shot at some detectives, and he was condemned to execution and was hanged. So that would have struck Beacon very hard. By a stroke of luck, he was reprieved.
Characteristically, he made friends instantly with the other political prisoners. A gentleman fellow he was. And among these, very, very good. The young IRA man. He had a smile the whole time on the face, and John T. Here again. So agreed. Always ready for that. Always ready for what? Sure, he went the hell of a lot in prison. It wasn't just for the one day. That same pleasant nature, confusion, good humour. It went on from the first day to the last day. No, it wasn't all a picnic, remember that, but it doesn't matter what the head went on. Whether it was rough going or smooth going, and any other kind of one. At some stage at the end of it, that was a pretty good laugh from Brendan Waterlow.
I know. You were supposed to be in 1954 where it's all happening, and instead I just spent ages in jail in the 1940s. That was what happened to Brendan too. The creative energy of his adolescence was deferred, stifled by authority and the literal strictures of prison. But now, in 1954, he was able finally to make up for lost time. His play, The Queer Fellow, was taking shape. This is Tom Creed, the director of a recent revival performed at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin earlier this year, who explained for us what the play is about.
So the play is set on over 24 hours in Mountjoy Prison in Dublin in the 1950s. And it's a play in which the staff and the inmates of the prison await the execution of someone we don't ever see, The Queer Fellow was the title. And so we discover the impact that this encroaching termination of a life has on all of the people who come into contact with it. Ian was writing at a moment where the death penalty was certainly still in use in Ireland, and that Ian, with great ingenuity and humanity, presents a conversation about the value of human life and what it means to take a life. He explores what it means to be in prison.
John Brannigan.
What it means to be punished in particular for things that society deems to be crimes, but which, when you hear the prisoners' stories, are often about hunger or need or being homeless. And so it reflects deeply, I suppose, upon what it means to believe in freedom. For Ian, freedom means much more than living, for example, in a democratic society. Above all, from a class perspective, he sees it as freedom from hunger, freedom from homelessness.
We went to visit the actors for the Abbey's recent production of The Queer Fellow.
We are in the Abbey Theatre, which is Ireland's National Theatre, and we are currently nestled in dressing room 2. My name is Amy Conroy. I'm an actor and a writer and sometimes director for theatre, and I'm currently in The Queer Fellow in the Abbey Theatre.
My name's Jean Moxey. I too am a writer, actor and sometimes director. As part of our research, we went to Mountjoy Jail, where Ian was, and so it was quite creepy. 15 women walking around a men's prison. But we also did see the hanging room.
In the room, like it's preserved in time, it's exactly as it was.
And then, anyway, we rang the old triangle in there, and some prisoners started singing the old triangle from their cells, and it was like, God.
Everybody knows it in this country. Everybody knows that song. Like, I knew the song before I knew the play. You know what I mean? It's a song that's sung quite often.
What they were really championing and funding Brendan to write and feel
So yeah, he's a very capable writer of both languages. But you can see different traces, if you will, with the work of the Irish language form.
The play was a success with Irish-speaking critics, but as Michael Pearce explains, it wasn't working artistically quite so well for Bean himself.
He says he saw rehearsals of Angeal, while I admired the producer tremendously, his idea of the play is not my idea of the play. He's at the school of Gabby naturalism. I'm not a pupil. John Littlewood I found suited my requirements exactly.
Ian agrees with Littlewood to stage a translation, now officially called The Hostage. But at the same time, he finally feels ready to take back up the project he'd abandoned when he left Paris, Borstal Boy, his semi-autobiographical novel, and the work clashes, taking its toll and competing with his drinking.
Ian is, at this point,
Here's literary scholar and cultural historian Lloyd Maeve Houston.
a bit A, burned out, B, in the midst of finishing Borstal Boy, and C, is ready to be which means that his workflow is not necessarily sort of uniform or always focused. Littlewood has a pretty strict deadline for when she needs the script by, and it's just not happening. There are stories of the growing histrionics of trying to get this work out of him. Eventually, one of the producers from Theatre Royal, apparently several sources corroborate, holds him at gunpoint to try and get him to do some writing, which he is meant as a joke and Bean takes it as a joke, but suggests the level of desperation that is animating this.
The Hostage is quite a bit more radical in this way.
She wants to offer a bit of comfort on a dark night.
Oh, please, man, what are they going to do with me?
You can take your hand off me, eh?
Oh, sorry,
I think that's my business.
So, in the play, when British authorities threaten to execute captive IRA volunteer in Belfast, the IRA retaliates by kidnapping a soldier and holding him hostage in the Hole, which is a run-down Dublin brothel.
The brothel in the play is not just a scene setter, it's alive with a host of characters. The kind of characters Ian knew in his real life, but rarely saw portrayed on stage, including sex workers and queer people.
And that isn't really appreciated enough at the time, or amongst some of us critics, how radical this is in the 1950s, on both a Dublin and a London stage.
It was rich with music, and drew heavily on Ian's talent for songwriting.
Especially that satire of all things British, the captains and the kings, of Ian's play The Hostage.
I'd have to sing this song in an Oxford accent. You haven't any idea of my Oxford accent, well, you start to,
God, that we are white, and that are still our English, here both and the muffin ring, old ladies with stern faces.
How much time to holiday with your business?
No, it's easy to forget what nature has to offer. I feel that very deeply for my works.
What do you mean?
I have men and women at my works, good people, some have never had a holiday, never travelled further than Cambridge. Their whole existence is labour and their children the same.
Do you wish you could change things for them?
No, I think we can all do something. I do have plans.
Tell me about them.
Are you really interested in substance?
Oh, yes.
Well, I see no reason why anyone should be forced to suffer simply because of where they were born, what they started life with.
Father says it's the natural order, that every person has his place.
But your father necessitates tradition.
He thinks becoming rich by hard work is perfectly acceptable. That everything comes down to a man's own efforts.
Look down on all the houses. Are we really meant to believe that God himself placed each and every one of us into our own little patch of earth? We must accept our fate.
What do you think?
I think progress is coming. Steam engines will change everything. Railways will crisscross the country and set us free. It's impossible to even imagine how the next generation will live. I'm sorry. I'm being boring.
No, not at all. I want you to tell me. I want to understand.
Take my hand. Let's go all the way to the top. Look down now.
What?
This is the summit. You can see for 30 miles. That way is Castle Town, the lighthouse at Scarlet Bay. Oh, the little cove. You see ports in there, and that's
that?
I just never knew. Like, they were so rich.
What the devil? What have you doing throwing stones about the place?
I'm sorry.
Lucky you only hit the old greenhouse. It hasn't been used in years. Still, it's not advisable to go smashing the place to pieces. Let's sit up here. Give me a hand. This used to be the old orchard. Get a good view from this wall.
Did you go to play in the orchard when you were mine?
No, we didn't live here then. We lived down in the town.
I can see the top of the steam car coming up here.
So you can. What are you doing with these old crops anyway?
You told me I could have them to play with, so I was free.
I bet she never told you to prop them up in front of the greenhouse.
No, but it was a good place to find them. She said it doesn't matter because they make clocks here.
Well, yes, they do. Because there's clay here. Yeah, they have the clay and the coal to burn it lying close together in the ground. It was happy for them. But the clay wasn't white. When's the last time you saw a well-to-do lady or gentleman drinking a cup of tea from a red or brown cup?
Never. Mother's cups and saucers are white.
That's right. And the white clay comes all the way from Cornwall. And people got more particular and they wanted matching frocks made with white clay. And it was easier to bring the clay to the works than take all the people and their families to the clay.
They use up all the red clay.
Ever seen a sagger?
You know what one is? Will you try it?
Not now. We could go tomorrow.
You have a plate?
Don't worry. I won't forget.
Well, I don't know what you mean. You know you're just the sort of person who shouldn't be when you're around. There's nothing between us, really. Well, then there should be. You're perfect for one another, and that's all I have to say about it. Now, if I don't eat in the next 5 minutes, I shall wilt. I'll take the easel. Could you carry my box? How long have you known Henry? Do you mean before we were engaged? We were engaged? Didn't I tell you? It was very silly. A long time ago. But don't you mind that he's here? Do you mind him spending time with me? My dear girl, you are sweet. But really, it was never as if we were actually going to get married. Goodness, can you imagine me climbing mountains and scuttling about in some rock pool? But really, I'm just glad to see him so happy.
If we row out across the bay, I can show you the caves.
It's so warm.
Swim. No. We should get Beatrice to show you. I swam out here before breakfast this morning. I was almost alone. Except for the birds.
Weren't you afraid?
Far from it. I feel at home in a place like this. Even though it's nothing like home. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. I do.
Oh, this sun is hot. You get dreadfully sunburnt, I'm afraid. You look as brown as the fishermen down in the pool.
That's what I want. They'll never know me when I get home.
Oh, mind your head, the entrance to the cave is just under this overhang. You'll need to duck down as we go in. Can you imagine the thousands of years this has been?
Everything's so smooth and black.
Completely unknown by people. And the better for it, if you ask me. It's magic, too.
Magic?
Yes. There's an old man here and he sings as long as you're not looking.
Where? Where is he?
Close your eyes. Close them. Comes out while you're looking. Are they closed?
I don't believe you.
Romantic sound, joy of heaven's fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithfulness is strong.
come and make the canal every day. There'll always be a different picture.
Does your mother like to paint?
No, but she takes me to art galleries. She worked for a newspaper once and learned shorthand. She knows the language. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. How have you liked staying at my house while you're getting better?
I'd like to do a great deal. You enjoyed it.
Very much, thank you.
Pity I shall have to leave soon.
Oh, why's that?
Once said better. I mean,
Ah, yes.
I won't have anyone to paint with me.
A shame that such a thing should happen. There was nothing that could be done to prevent it.
Run away. I've nothing to do. Will you really take me with you when you go, Anna? Straight into heaven. What will happen to Mr. Price? Bandaged my knee at Sunday school. He's going to pay. Must never tell Agnes. I won't. It was a secret. I went to the bank and I got him £100. How can start again? He's going to Australia. Is he? I'll have a good life there. He'll have a family. He'll be happy. Even son.
In Chinatown, inspired by the novels of Arnold Bennett, dramatised by Lynn Coughlin and Sean McKenna. Ephraim Tellwright was played by Neil Dudgeon. Anna was Cato Flynn. Henry Miners, Joseph Kloska. Beatrice, Isabella Inchbald. And Will Price, Joseph Eyre. Agnes was Amy Jane Lee. Edwin, Cameron Percival. Hilda, Lucy Doyle. George, Oliver Zetterstrom. And Auntie Hamps, Caroline Pickles. Dr. He was Tony Turner. Reverend Banks, Michael Burnshaw. And the bank teller, Sam Dale. Incidental music was arranged by Colin Guthrie and performed by Colin Guthrie, Peter Ringrose, and Ian Conningham. Songs were performed by members of the company. Director was Gemma James.
And Chinatown continues at the same time next week when Play Hangout moves into the Port Thursday residence after a trip to Paris. Now, just before the news, let's take a quick look at the weather. Tonight, Wales and southern, central and eastern England will have patchy rain at first, turning heavier and more persistent from the southwest. However, the west will turn drier later on. Scotland and much of northern England will have rain clearing east with just a few showers in the west. Northern Ireland will be largely dry. Tomorrow, central and eastern England will see spells of rain clearing through the morning, sunny spells and showers following. Elsewhere, a mix of variable clouds, sunny spells and scattered showers predominantly in the north and west. It will stay mild and breezy. On FM, on longwave and on BBC Sounds. This BBC Radio 4.
BBC News at 10 o'clock. This is Ron Brown. Good evening. Paul Gething is set to become the First Minister of Wales, the first black leader of a European nation, after he won the contest to beat the Welsh Labour Party. Moscow has accused Ukraine of stepping up cross-border attacks on the second day of Russia's presidential election. Computer problems have disrupted home deliveries by two of the UK's biggest supermarkets. Indian commandos have ended a 3-month standoff with Somali pirates on a cargo ship in the Red Sea. Ireland have won the Rugby Union Six Nations for a second consecutive year. Paul Gething has won the contest to succeed Mark Drakeford as leader of the Welsh Labour Party. He's set to become the First Minister of Wales in the next few days. Mr Gething beat his only rival, Education Minister Jeremy Miles, with 52% of the vote of party members. His win means that for the first time since devolution was introduced, no part of the UK will be led by a white man. The result was announced at an event in Cardiff. News correspondent Hal Griffith was there
in a two-horse race that took 3 months to complete, Vaughan Gething, in the end, won by a slender majority of votes by Welsh Labour members. Having served as both Labour's Health Minister and Economy Minister in Wales, Mr Gething has been at the centre of government here for a decade. He wanted to put the focus on the future.
Today, turn a page in the book of our nation's history. A history that we write together. Not just because I have the honour of becoming the first black leader in any country. Because the generational dial has jumped to. And I want us to use this moment as a starting point for a more confident march into the future.
The next few weeks and months will bring plenty of challenges, with mass job losses looming at the Tata Steelworks in Port Talbot, and the prospect of more farmers protesting at the Senate steps. There will also be rifts to heal within Labour. Some have questioned Mr Gething's acceptance of a £200,000 donation from a company whose owner was prosecuted for illegally dumping waste, something he says is done properly.
I've always been scrupulous about following the rules, but making sure we operate properly. And we have done that in declaring the donation to the Senate. It's an individual part of our policy.
The formal transition of power in the Welsh Government will come next week. Tuesday, Clayton is expected to take his final questions as First Minister and his nation to the King. Then, on Wednesday, vote will take place in the Senate to nominate Vaughan Gething as his replacement.
Vaughan Gething is a former solicitor who was born in Zambia. He's hailed the result as a significant moment. He said there were still some who regularly questioned or denied his Welsh nationality because of his race. BBC Wales political editor Gareth Lewis has this report on Vaughan Gething's rise to the top of the Welsh government.
Humphrey Moore and David Gething's route to the Art Deco First Minister's office, looking out over a park in central Cardiff, has been an unusual one. He was born in Zambia in 1974. His father, from Ogmore-by-Sea near Bridgend, was a vet, and his mother a Zambian chicken farmer. When he was 2, the family moved to the UK after his father was offered a job in Abergavenny. But when he arrived with his black family, that offer was withdrawn. They moved to Dorset instead. Later, Mr Gething went to university in Cardiff and Aberystwyth. This is where he first came to political prominence, speaking to the BBC in the late 1990s about his opposition to tuition fees.
Tuition fees are a detriment to access. They do damage access. They do put people off.
Vaughan Gething's early experiences have shaped his politics. As the first black leader of a European nation, he's spoken eloquently about the message his election would send. He knows, he says, what it's like to experience prejudice and have your place in the community questioned. One of his aims is that nobody in Wales should feel that way again.
Sir Keir Starmer has hailed Mr Gething's victory as a historic moment that speaks to the progress and values of modern-day Wales. Offering his congratulations, Rishi Sunak said there was now a chance for a new administration to focus on what matters to people in Wales. With his thoughts, here's our political editor, Chris Mason.
At this morning's results event here in Cardiff, Labour activists could barely complete a sentence before 2 words came tumbling out consecutively. General election. Their eyes rising towards that horizon within a reach of Vaughan Gething's victory being announced. Mr Gething represents a generational and presentational leap from his predecessor Mark Drakeford. Labour's new leader here relishing the public stage and determined to have a punchier presence. Sir Keir Starmer and Vaughan Gething have spoken on the phone, both men aware Labour's long governing record in Wales will be further scrutinised before polling day. There is a bigger picture point worth pondering tonight too. In recent weeks there has been an angry political conversation involving race and religion. Politics finds its expression articulating, reflecting society's concerns and hopes in a myriad of ways. And within a few days there will be a black Welsh First Minister, as well as a British Asian new Prime Minister, and a British Asian Muslim First Minister of Scotland, Humza Yousaf, plus a Catholic First Minister of Northern Ireland, Michelle O'Neill. The biographies of these leaders, as well as that wider debate, portraits of the contemporary United Kingdom.
Russia has accused Ukraine of trying to disrupt its presidential election. People were killed by airstrikes in the southern city of Belgorod. Kiev
The second of 3 days of lockdown has just ended, with Vladimir Putin almost certain to retain power. Vitaly Shevchenko reports.
The governor of Russia's Belgorod region says Ukrainian attacks on Saturday morning left 3 people dead, 3 more injured, and numerous houses and cars damaged. Shopping centres and schools are being closed in the regional capital and some of the surrounding areas. Separately, the defense ministry in Moscow says it has stopped what it called groups of Ukrainian militants from infiltrating Russia across the border. The Russian Foreign Ministry has accused Ukraine of trying to disrupt the presidential election, but Kiev never confirms or denies involvement in such attacks.
Home deliveries by 2 of the UK's biggest supermarkets have been disrupted by unconnected technical faults. Sainsbury's says the issues also prevented contactless payments in some of its stores. A smaller number of Tesco deliveries were also cancelled. Here's our business correspondent, Mark Ashdown.
Sainsbury's was the first supermarket to announce that its home deliveries had been disrupted because of what it described as an overnight IT software update error. The supermarket giant said that as well as halting the vast majority of deliveries, the fault had prevented contactless payments in some of its stores. It said customers could still use chip and pin and cash to pay. Tesco also said that technical issues forced it to cancel a small number of home deliveries. BBC understands that there's no link between the problems at both supermarkets. Writing to customers, the chief executive of Sainsbury's said those whose deliveries had been cancelled would not be charged and only be credited with an e-voucher for the inconvenience. Contactless payments in Sainsbury's are now working again. Customers have been told they can rebook online deliveries from tomorrow onwards.
Princess Diana's brother, Al Spencer, has told the BBC that the press attention suffered by his sister was more dangerous than the scrutiny currently being faced by the Princess of Wales. In an interview for tomorrow's Sunday with Laura Kunsberg programme, he also revealed details about the violent punishments that he and his sister endured when they were young. Here's Laura Kunsberg.
Charles Spencer found his own prominence for tragic reasons. Last in the press for the way his world-famous sister was treated and died. He's reluctant to comment on any of the current woes of the royal family, but I asked him whether the online frenzy around the current Princess of Wales was more potent than the intrusion his sister, her predecessor in that title, suffered.
It was more dangerous back in the day. Yeah, if I look back to 97 and Diana's death, I think that was so shocking to the circumstance of her death was so shocking that it did make the industry that supports the paparazzi really consider more carefully what it could and couldn't do.
Earl Spencer has opened up in a new memoir about his childhood, revealing appalling sexual abuse and violence in the boarding school he was sent to when he was 8. But he also told me about violent punishments he and Diana received from a nanny known as Nanny Foster at home.
She used to crack our heads together if we both found her on something naughty, obviously without my father's knowledge. But it really hurt. It wasn't a tap on my wrist. It was a cracking crunch, and I remember it still.
He doesn't blame his parents, who he told me did their best and followed the upper-class convention of using nannies and sending their children away to school. But Earl Spencer's story is a reminder that privilege is no guarantee of happiness. Aristocracy provides no protection from abuse.
Hear more from that interview with Earl Spencer on BBC Sounds, iPlayer and on BBC One tomorrow morning from 9 o'clock. Commandos with the Indian Navy have stormed a cargo ship in the Indian Ocean, which was seized by Somali pirates 3 months ago. A Navy spokesman said all 17 crew on board the Maltese flagged MV Ruin had been rescued without injury, and 35 pirates have surrendered. With more details, here's our South Asia regional editor, Rasan Etirajan.
The cargo ship Ruin was seized off the coast of Somalia in December, and since then it was being tracked by international maritime forces. The Indian rescue operation involved drones and marine commandos dropped from the air. It was conducted almost 2,600 kilometers away from the Indian coast. Since January, the Indian Navy has intercepted 2 hijacked vessels, rescuing 38 crew members kidnapped by pirates. India has deployed at least a dozen warships along with other nations to provide security against pirates in the western Indian Ocean this year.
India is not part of the US-led task force protecting Western from military attack in the Red Sea. But an expert said the Indian Navy was doing Catholic police work patrolling the northern and western Arabian Sea. Venezuela's ruling Socialist Party has confirmed that Nicolas Maduro will seek a third consecutive term as president, an election scheduled for July. Mr. Maduro